am going to call to
Recording in progress.
Oh, that was aggressive. At 7:09, this town council meeting of July 27th, 2021. If you could all please stand for the pledge of allegiance in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all very much. That gets us to number 4, proclamations and presentations. None. Public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. This is our first true hybrid meeting, so we're working out kinks. We're gonna do this as of right now. If there's any public that wants to speak that's in the room first, we're gonna have them come up and speak first. Then we'll go to anybody who's on Zoom. The Zoom etiquette, the Zoom guidelines are still the same. But we did find out if you're having a hard time seeing us or hearing us, the best option for you is to go on speaker view on Zoom. So then you will have the person who's talking in the room will be in larger screen on your screen. So you'll have a better viewing experience than seeing the Brady Bunch view and everybody being so small. And we might have some bumps here trying to see who's raising their hand there and who we have here. So please humor us and walk through this with us. You can raise your hand as normal. If you're on your phone, to raise your hand, and we will ask you to state for the record as normal. So as of right now, last thing too is I am still recovering from surgery and I cannot type, so my note taking is a little bit slower than my words per minute. So I might ask you to repeat things if I don't get them down well enough, although I'm sure Ann is going to get a heck of a lot more than me. Public, please come to the front.
Once again, the PZC leads the way, and we've had 2 hybrid meetings, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity. But my name is Andy Powell, 21 Clearbrook Drive. I'm speaking as a private citizen for this evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the council and the staff in creating and delivering the proclamations for our 7 Eagle Scouts that we had 2 weekends ago. Through the pandemic, we had 7 scouts go and complete the highest rank in scouting, even though we couldn't really meet. And the fact that the town also recognized their dedication and their support was greatly appreciated. So it made a big difference. It made a big difference to us. And Tammy being there as well made a big difference. It really puts into their minds that their project wasn't just about them. It's about the entire community. And service is recognized and will be remembered time. So thank you for that. And also in conjunction with that, the Scouts Troop 2 stands ready to help the town in any way as we go forward with our enhancement, whether it's done there or done someplace else. We have 2 troops in Tolland that'd be more than happy to be able to provide any support or any guidance we possibly can. But again, thank you very much, and looking forward to being here.
Thank you, Andy. I'd just like to say again, like I did there, that's one of my favorite things to do, and they're such great young men. Like the stuff that they did and that they worked through the pandemic was the projects that they did, their thoughtfulness of the community in multiple communities, not just Tolland, is second to none. So thank them. No need to thank us. We just show up to thank them. So the Scoutmaster for helping produce such awesome, upstanding young men that are going to go out and be great leaders. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody up here?
I don't see anybody.
All right, then we are going to go on to 6. We have no public hearings tonight. 7A, reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. So Brenda, it's your show.
Brenda Felucci, I am online in case anybody's looking for me. Very quick, sustainable CT, I have no updates, and for tourism, I have no updates this evening.
Okay. That's gonna get us then to 7B, which is reports of the town council liaisons. Brenda,
Yes, so Blight's meeting was canceled because we did not have a quorum. Planning and zoning met last night. They discussed changes to small stock. That means small animal stock. Home offices, home occupancy businesses. Thank you. And it was a very informative meeting. They did a great job at taking a look at all of the issues. And that is it, really. That's the big highlights from the meeting.
perfect, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, Steve Jones. So the 19th, the Water Commission met. They discussed their continued issues with leak detection on Torrey Road, and I believe the Connecticut Professional Water indicated 2 service lines at Winding River having issues. They just continue to go updates, and they also approved a contract, I believe, with Tata and Howard System Valuation for about $23,000. So they'll be doing an evaluation of the entire water system. And then following that, the Conservation Commission met on the 22nd. That was just a site walk, though the highlight was that there are a few remaining American chestnut trees in that area, so they surveyed that and mentioned that there is an organization in the region that is looking to preserve those. So more to come on that.
Steve, do you have any other information on the evaluation that they're having done in regard to like the total water services?
I know personally, I know Bev is in the audience and might be able to, since they're liaison for the water system. Bev Fidelity, the Director of Human Services, might be able to give insight.
Do you guys mind if we have Bev elaborate on that a little bit? I'd like to understand what they're doing. Their minutes didn't have all of it. So Bev, do you?
They're doing another capital evaluation analysis. The last one I believe was done in 2019. We've had some changes where our water system, as Yukon has, Connecticut Water brought the water to Yukon. This area, that area of town is now being serviced by that water line. Previously, that was coming off of our wells. So it's kind of identifying where our water lines are, kind of looking at the capital asset values, how many customers we serve, looking at, just once again, looking at the whole system, trying to get an evaluation of it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay, John?
Yes, on July 20th, WPCA met, and this was an in-person only meeting. WPCA has decided to hold their meetings in person only. They discussed the old cat hole. There was an accident on that road that knocked out a transformer. That's been repaired. All is well there. We got an update from Rod Grassis on the plant upgrade at Vernon. They're currently treating for phosphorus, and things are progressing along nicely there. They had to make some process changes to accommodate the construction, but they had no issues to report. We got an update on Woodside Drive sewer connection. This is new construction. There were 6 inspections done. There will be 7 new units there, 2 two-family units and 5 single-family units. And then we got an update on 62 and 70 Merrill Road. This Papa T's and Subway are going to connect. And the update on Dunkin' Donuts is they haven't done their connection yet. Most likely it will be done at the same time that they do the construction on the drive-through. And then the final update we got was College View. There was an issue with a reverse pitch up there that they're dealing with, and that's in the process of being fixed. So there is some activity up there, and that's it.
I'm glad College View is still motoring along. Sorry, just trying to catch up with the notes. Okay. Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That Birch Grove Building Committee met on July 20th. That we a number of things that one of the big issues was that based upon the work with our finance director here, that she was able to find some additional funds that were available that were transferred over from one account to the other, or from location in the building committee account to another, giving us a contingency balance on the owner's side for $143,000, a little bit more than that, 143 and change. That brought us up to a level that that the building committee felt comfortable with as a owner's contingency. That we did discuss several items, including the change order, which dealt with the site work prep for a at the location. That there was a lot of discussion about it, that the cost just for the prep work alone was $42,000, in excess of $42,000. That will come out of the owner's contingency. So essentially, the money that was found was then later offset because we did approve that site work to be done so that the groundwork is at least laid and the drainage and the pitch is all set for us to install a playground that the town has identified at a later point in time. There were several other minor change items, including adding exit signs and building signage that was required by the as part of the inspection. That we are now at, based upon the expenses, the total amount of owner's contingency is at $97,381. Again, the building committee is being very cognizant of that. There was a lot of discussion and concern regarding how close we were getting, even though we're getting close to the end of the project, that there's still a lot of concern about anything else that might come up at the end. The main goal is getting that certificate of occupancy and being able to move forward. But that's where we stand right now with a owner's contingency of $97,381. That is everything else is going along. That the FF&E and technology deliveries are continuing. That the internet system is being set up. Everything is being tested and running as hoped. So we are still on track. That we're actually discussing, knock on wood, about the having a celebration for and dedication ceremony. That's in the planning right now. We're beginning planning. So that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Kurt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only meeting I had since our previous town council meeting was the Tolland Mental Health and Substance Abuse Task Force met on Monday, the 17th. Councilor Regan and I were there. We had kind of a brainstorming session of kind of a wrap up of what all the interviews we've done, and specifically addressed kind of some of our thoughts on the but for some of our thoughts for addressing these issues with the under 18 community, that age group. And I would like to refer anyone to the minutes that were written. They're on the town website. They're really, really well put together. And it kind of gives a very nice highlight and overview of what was discussed, some of the thoughts, especially of the experts in the mental health and substance abuse world, much more articulate than I am in some of these ideas and what we're thinking at this moment on the task force. So.
Madam Chair, could I add one other thing from the Water Commission, just for the record, that they did finish the repairs to well 1. There was about 43 feet of galvanized piping, and there was like a motor valve. They couldn't find the lightning that actually caused the issue, but the claim was submitted to KERMA. Then just below what is the deductible, so it was by like $50,000 or something of that sort. So
That's too bad.
but it is repaired, and people's water in that region should be back to the quality that they paid for.
That's good then.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys very much. At this, is it still crazy? It looks like the trees have died down. I think we're good to probably put the agenda. Like, it looks pretty good. out there.
It looks like it's pretty bad at my house still.
Really?
Lightning.
All right, well, in light of the fact that this is all new, and if we lose power, we have no idea. Legislation didn't cover losing power, so we're gonna do some moving around of the agenda, just so we can make sure we have the items that we need to voted on. But I think
They're in order.
I think they're fine, right? Like
Yeah.
from, yeah. Okay, all right. Forget all that. We're gonna stick with the agenda. 8.1, consideration of a resolution to approve a bid waiver for the purchase of the new ambulance, as well as labor and materials associated with the replacement of ambulance 640.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. This item is ambulance 640 that was in the capital plan to be funded in this fiscal year 2021 to 2022 in an amount not to exceed $285,000. The funding source was going to be the ambulance reserve fund. And this was all approved as part of the capital improvement process that we just underwent the last, 6 or 8 months or so. So at this time, and I know the fire chief is in the audience virtually tonight, we're requesting that the requirements for bidding the ambulance, the chassis, the box, the labor and materials, that they're waived in accordance with the town policy A12611D7. There's a little bit of information in your packet about the ambulance 640 that this is replacing. But we would like to, with your permission, go replace it from the same vendor that services all of our other ambulances in town, so that there's a consistency in the vendor and and maybe the chief can explain a little bit more why that's a good idea, but it's Eastford Fire and Rescue Sales Incorporated. They've done the other ambulances in town, and to keep it sort of uniform, that's why we're requesting the bid waiver. There's also, as written into the packet materials, especially with everything being kind of wonky due to COVID, there is all sorts of concerns about industry delays, price gouging and things like that, that if we were to delay, that's why we're coming to you in July, right after the budget has gone live now a few weeks ago. We'd like to get this rolling as soon as possible. So that's why we're here tonight asking for your permission to waive the bid and to approve the resolution. John, is there anything you maybe want to add in the preamble about why this is a good idea?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. We started this process back in January 27th of 2021 with all the COVID things going on and manufacturers and what we saw going on with the Birch Grove, with the steel prices and everything else wise. We thought we would jump on it sooner than later. Eastford Fire and Rescue has been a great asset to the town of Tolland, as well as many of the other communities around us. So we're very satisfied with their work. The problem is, back when we were talking to them back in January, February, and March, with the COVID times, there's a lot of places that are closed down. I'm reading an email right now from February 25th that says that there is a delay on chassis and there's an increase on prices. So we're hoping that we spec'd out the right amount of money for the chassis. But our concern right now is, and I reached out to 4 other vendors as well to look at demos, because I know that the town always looks at demos or other items that are out there. And the demos, Carl Dogen, our assistant chief's online tonight too. We met with a manufacturer back in June to see what their prices were. And we're in line with the same prices as Eastford Fire and Rescue. Eastford Fire and Rescue has taken care of us like a family. They come down, they do the servicing, they take care of the inspections, they take care of everything else wise. We don't have to send staff out, costing us extra money to take the ambulance out of service and delivering. So I think the benefit is there. We have a very good business relationship with them. I'm not looking to sidetrack anybody, but when we looked at the demos, the prices are in general. And the problems with demos are you don't know what you're getting. The things that we've tried in Tolland is to keep things consistent and standardized. So we've run 2 ambulances, and hopefully down the road when we get our firehouses done, we'll be running 3 ambulances to have a backup, so we don't have any loss of service to the community. But right now, all I can say is that I'm nervous of what's happening with the COVID and what's happening with everything else. And I would think it would be proficient for us to get our name on a document to go forward with, so we can at least make a order to have our name on there. I can tell you right now, we already missed a 2021 chassis, but I'd like to secure a 2022 chassis. My only problem is I don't have the exact estimate because of all the stuff that's going on. I can't get a firm price of where they are with the COVID prices and everything else. So Mr. Rosen did an excellent job of summarizing everything. And I know a lot of other staff members was here. One of my members can't get on tonight because of probably the IT or the weather issues, we have a couple roads closed in town right now with the weather, but, there's a couple of issues, but, like I said, we've worked on this across the board. This is a replacement of 2 ambulances that we run in town. We replace them every 5 years. We have a good system in place, and we'd like to ask permission to move forward.
Thank you for that update, John. I appreciate that. So you mentioned that you talked to 5 other vendors, and that all of the information that you got back is that the price, the $285,000, is in line with those 5 other vendors?
Yeah, you have to understand that dealing with the COVID stuff, there's a lot of vendors that have added a lot of different aspects to the COVID as far as ventilation and, containment of compartments and everything else wise. So we're in line with Eastford of going with a new type of ambulance. Now, the last ambulance that we went for a bid waiver was back in 2011, I believe it was, when we did the remounts. We're at the end of the term of doing remounts. We're at the term where we need to replace the ambulances completely, which means box and chassis. We're saving the town probably about another $90,000 of not replacing another service truck, because the next ambulance that we replace right now with this one will become in place of another service truck. So, looking at the prices across the board, a lot of COVID prices have doved into a lot of the prices, and that includes coming up to code. So when we come up to code, because we're doing a new box, we have to go with a new stretcher, as well as a new power load system that limits liability to the town as far as lifting and back injuries and everything else wise. It's like building a house. You change your house and you have to come up to building codes. We have to follow the same K specs of the ambulance committee from the state. So we have to follow certain limitations, if that makes sense.
It does. So we can see who's speaking when,
Sure, but
Because
then
otherwise-
we won't be able to see hands raised and things though, so.
well, we
yeah.
see hands raised on this, on the participant thing. That should pop up with the hands raised.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're turning our head to see the person's.
Yeah, do you want me to test the hand raising so you can see what would happen?
Raise a hand, I think it's gonna pop up on the participants.
On the left though.
What do you mean?
See,
She pops up at the top there.
But no, John, talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep talking, Brenda.
So that was a vote to approve this? Is that what you were saying?
All right, yeah, so it works.
So, yeah, as long as whoever's speaking, we'll see who raises their hands, but then we're not all turning our heads, so John, Steve and I can see.
It's not unusual that you have to ask John to talk.
The peripheral's pretty good for me.
Yeah, all right, so thank you for humoring me, I appreciate that. We're trying to make this good as we go. All
Absolutely.
right.
Thank you, Chairman Luba.
Anybody else have anyone have any questions they want to ask of John or? No? I don't see Brenda, I don't see Kurt. All right,
Steve Jones, I mentioned that now therefore be resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby waives the requirements for bidding for the purchase of ambulance 640 in accordance with Town Policy A-126, 11D subsection 7 of the Tolland Town Council, and hereby authorizes Michael Rosen or his designee to execute an agreement with Eastford Fire and Rescue Sales, Inc. for the purchase of a new ambulance, Ford chassis, box, labor, materials not to exceed $285,000. This agreement shall be executed upon approval of this item by the Town Council, approved by the Tolland Town Council on July 27th, 2021.
Lulu
Brenda
also.
Lucy, I second.
any discussion? All right, all those in favor, Steve,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
So that is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, that gets us to 8.2, appointments to vacancies on various municipal boards and commissions.
Yes, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. We have one new appointment. And we also, just in your packet, we also have a resignation letter from one of the counselors. So that'll be taken up at a future meeting. But for the new appointment, it's Catherine McDonald for the Mental Health and Substance Use Advisory Task Force, which are life terms. Catherine is currently an alternate on that task force. and there was a vacancy in the regular member position. So this would be to move Catherine to become a regular member, and then we would have a vacancy on the alternates. Actually, there'd be 2 alternates vacant.
2 alternates are still open, right?
Yeah.
So we should push out something to see if anybody wants to come in on that.
I was gonna make a note that leave Catherine is in the audience if they wanted to speak before we take any action, if they wanted to say hi, if not, that's okay, I just see that they're muted, but.
Yes, I saw
I'm
that.
here and happy to be participating in the task force and excited to take on this position.
Well, thank you very much for volunteering your time and stepping up to be part of this task force. We appreciate the residents who take the time to volunteer for these things to help us make our town a better place. So thank you very much for the time and effort that you are undoubtedly going to put in to help with this task force.
My pleasure.
And also with that note, I would like to just thank Mrs. Johnson for her time on the council and acknowledge the benefit that she brought to the council while she was here. And I also saw we had another resignation on the
For Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessment, okay.
Madam Chair, just point of order, do we need to vote on the placing her in
Yes.
the full-time position?
Not tonight.
Not tonight?
The town clerk has been out of the
Well, no,
office.
she mean Catherine.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Catherine,
Yes.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
we do, we have to vote on that. So I think that's all that we have. Steve, you want to go ahead?
Sure thing. Seeing no other discussion, Steve Jones make a motion that we approve the appointment of Catherine McDonald to the Tolland Mental Health and Substance Use Advisory Task Force.
Lou, I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Lou,
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you again, Catherine. Can't wait to have you fully on board and going. Thank you very much. Okay, that gets us to 9.1, old business. Consideration and action on authorizing the renewal of a contract, the state of Connecticut for resident trooper services for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023.
Great. Hi, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So this was on our last agenda two weeks ago. This was, we didn't feel comfortable voting on it at that meeting because I think there were 2 bits of information that you were still looking for before moving forward. But we hope that we got those answers for you tonight. So this is again a 2-year contract to continue services with the state troopers to be our local police force, the resident program. We have 4 troopers and 1 trooper secretary that's part-time that is funded through the program. The 2 pieces of information that I believe you were looking for last time, one had to do with insurance, and we do have in your packet tonight a letter from our insurance company that talks about umbrella insurance. So there was a question about, since the contract makes reference to amendments that happen in the police accountability bill, are we safe that with the current level of insurance that we currently have? And the answer to that is yes. We have $1 million in law enforcement liability, but we also have an $11 million umbrella policy that is more than adequate to cover any overages. So we don't need to beef up our insurance any further than the levels that were previously written into the contract. So that's good. The second question that was outstanding, I'm going to let Lisa maybe answer that one, if you don't mind. Lisa Hancock, Finance Director, is sitting with me tonight. And it was about what increase year over year the contract would cost. So go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so this year, the 21-22 fiscal year, we already budgeted and we did our estimates. That increased about $7,000, which was a 1.05% increase. The reason for such a low increase was because we had some savings, we had some transitions in officers retiring and bringing in lower paid officers to bring that total amount down. In next year, we're estimating in 22 that it will increase about $20,000 over this year's budget, which is about a 2.97%. Again, that's only an estimate at this time. There could be potential additional retirements or changes in staffing, but that's where we're at based on the current level of officers moving up through their ranges, so on and so forth.
Okay. The umbrella insurance, Mike, we have a $10 million additional policy, so
Yeah.
11 million total, right?
Yes.
All right, so I'm definitely more comfortable with that number than a 1 million number. Having that there is good. And then Lisa, the amounts that we have on there, that's part of the state trooper contract, right? It's not like we don't have any power over the increases or anything that's in there.
That is correct.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
have the price, but we're only paying the benefits at the rate now. It used to be much higher and now it's lower.
That was part of the savings last year. They reduced the benefit rate.
Right. Okay, so those are the two big issues that we had last time. Is everybody comfortable with the response that we got back regarding the contract? All right, then.
Right, Steve Jones, I would make a motion that we authorize renewal of the contract with the state of Connecticut for residency trooper services for a period of July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2023.
Lula
Brenda
Wells.
Lucy, a second.
Before I go to discussion, Mike, you look a little pensive. Are we okay with that?
Yeah,
We're good?
that's right.
Okay, all right, any discussion? All those in favor? This is like, I'm shaking up the, like, I am trying here. Steve,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Brenda.
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you very much for that information, and thank you for getting that additional information for us so we could make a better decision and make sure we have everything covered. I appreciate it. 9.2, discussion on Veterans Wall of Honor in consideration of a resolution to amend Chapter 47A of the Town Code, Ordinance Number 77, Veterans Recognition Commission, setting of a public hearing thereon for August 10th, 2021.
Okay, so this is a continuation of an agenda item that we had before us maybe a month or a month and a half ago. This is, we had looked at the ordinance number 77 or chapter 47A in the town code, which is the establishing ordinance for the Veterans Recognition Commission, a draft of which is in your packet tonight. At that meeting from about 2 or so months ago, there were some draft revisions that were made to the ordinance to further open up membership on the VRC, as well as make a few other tweaks to the ordinance, which I believe the last time this was amended was, let me just take a look here, maybe 2007-ish, around that time. So yeah, February 13th, 2007. So every once in a while you kick the tires and see if there's any amendments that need to be looked at. So what I did in tonight's packet was I put a draft of the ordinance that is, I'm just looking for it here. Oh, my packet's missing it.
Be on page 29.
29.
Yeah, it's on 28 and 29. It looks like you have the old one and then the proposed, I'm
Yes.
thinking.
Yeah, I think it's missing the draft watermark. I don't know what happened to that, but on page 28 is the existing ordinance. Page 29 is the new revised ordinance, which, as you can see, looks a little bit different. The main changes, I think there was a version of this that had them in highlight. I guess it didn't make the final cut, but the main one is that rather than 5 members, that it's now suggested to be 7 members. And the other major change is rather than spelling out which branches of the armed forces were Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, now it's just those who are serving or have served in the armed forces as defined in US Code 10, Section 101. I think that's more all-encompassing and updates from time to time. I think in this case, Space Force may have been now added to that, which wasn't specifically called out because it didn't exist in 2007. So that's the major change in that first section. The other change is, let me just see here, to work in conjunction. I think that was the major one. It basically just opened up, expands who's eligible to be on. Oh, it's also to family members. So bullet number 4, immediate family members of Tolland residents meeting these aforementioned requirements. That's a new section as well, because I know that the VRC from time to time has trouble with quorums. And I think it was considered that family members should also be able to serve on the VRC since they understand and have a lot to say about veterans in town, even though they themselves may not have served in the armed forces. So I think those are the three major changes: the number of people on the commission, the who's eligible to be on the commission, and now the family members as well. I think those were the only major changes.
Okay. So at this point, we're talking about setting a public hearing. So prior to setting that public hearing, is there anything we want to discuss on the proposed changes that are before us? I have one clarifying question myself. I don't know if anybody else does.
I do. Sure. Ms. Nuccio.
All right, go
Oh,
right ahead.
Tammy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay. Just about the family members, they have to be, I'm assuming they have to be residents of Tolland as well as the immediate family member who's serving. They also have to be a resident of Tolland, or could they be a non-resident of Tolland, the service member?
Saying the immediate family member, do they need to be a resident of Tolland, and also the service person? So basically, if, for instance, my brother is on the wall of honor, but he is
Yep.
no Tolland resident. So that would not mean that I could be on
Okay.
because he's not a resident.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, that's specifically covered because it says not only does a veteran have to be a resident of Tolland and meet these requirements, but also under section 4, the family members of Tolland resident must meet it. So by default, that it would have to be a resident of Tolland.
Okay. Thank you.
And I don't see Brenda's hand up, sorry.
I have a question. Did the Veterans Commission have any input on these changes? Have they reviewed them and given their any input?
I think that they were invited to tonight's meeting. They were at the last meeting as well. I don't know. Yeah.
We do have somebody in the audience. Yes, I'm going to ask you in 1 second. Anything else, Brenda?
No, I just want to make sure that they have a chance to speak to these changes and if they're in favor of them or not, because, you know, we did task them with doing the work. So I want to ensure that they have what they need to do their work.
Okay. We have to get back into the flow of like, y'all aren't raising your hands. I'm like used to Zoom world right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say as a veteran that I support this. I think it's something that it's good to be inclusive. I think it's something that we having more people on and more people involved in it is an outstanding thing. And not only do we expand the definition by default by using 10 U.S. Code Section 101, but also by including the Merchant Marines who were also who were previously left out from the definitions, who also played a vital role in many operations, including World War II, which is where they're specifically recognized. I think that the tasks of the commission, that we're not looking to have them undertake everything on their own, that they're there to look at things, to make recommendations, and then we go out to the community. And that's really what it is, to provide guidance for the community so that the community can take actions as a whole. We're not looking for them to be an island in and of themselves, that everything that I believe that we do inside Tolland is done as a community, and nobody stands alone. And I think that this is especially true where you have people that, even though that they may not be part of the Veterans Recognition Commission, that have already said that they are interested in stepping forward and helping out once is actually undertaken or done. So I think that that's something that I would hope that we would be able to view, and that this is something that, again, as a veteran, I made these proposals for the changes. This was my request, and I would ask that we move forward with the language that Mr. Rosen has put forward, which I think adequately reflects the everything that we have discussed, and that we can move forward from there. But at your lead, Madam Chair, that we could hear from the representative of the ARC.
Yep. Before we get to that, this is just, I don't know, my brain goes to weird places now. definition of immediate family member.
I don't think that's not built into this. I don't know.
Right, so I don't know if that's, too vague or if it's okay. And I just don't know if, like, what does that extend to? I don't know if we,
Well, I
do we
think
have
that,
that anywhere in any of our, in any of our policies now? I don't know.
I
that
don't
we
think
do.
so. I don't believe so. Most of our committees that are formed are residents that are, have a expertise in that field or something like that. Not on behalf of a family member. This would be a first.
Yeah.
Perhaps besides, maybe I think with mental health and that task force, we had opened up eligibility to people who work with people. who
Right,
are-
people
but
who were like
Yeah.
took care of, or they were dependent, people had dependents that were.
That may be the only example we have, though.
I think that's the only one that came to mind when I was looking at it, and I'm just, you look like you're pondering.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I recognize Counselor Luba and their hand raised, they might.
well, I think that we're probably thinking about the same thing where, if I may, Madam Chair.
You all right? Yeah.
That
Free flow.
as far as for immediate family, I think that's something that is a consideration for when it comes before the appointment commission, the selection commission or committee within the town council, that we could make that consideration and ask if that's something, and that's something that could be queried upon. I mean, it's not that immediate family member, I would envision is, the immediate family, like brothers, sisters, mother, father, something like that. That's, but that's something that it's something that we can build on. And then if we feel that as a town council, that it meets your criteria, that we can consider that. But I think that's something that when the person's name is put forward, that the committee can consider before making that recommendation to the entire town council.
Okay.
If I may,
Hold on one second, Brenda. Go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna add to that just like our other committees where we do vetting, we usually defer to the town manager's office to confirm the residency. We could probably go through a similar process to confirm that relationship. And we also encourage members or prospective members to attend the meeting, so they may be able to work with the commission to validate their immediate family relationship with a veteran in the town or a past veteran, so.
Okay, so you're confident then that the process that you guys are currently using would, I just worry about the vagueness. Like, I don't know if we want to put a little more definition around, and Mike Wilkinson has his hand up now.
So there, in our personal rules, there is a definition for immediate family as it relates to bereavement leave. So I don't know if you want to mirror that to make it easier.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Isn't that typically
So
mother, father?
It's
aunt,
in
uncle.
our, it's current spouse, mother, stepmother, father, stepfather, mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother, sister, child, stepchild, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, or grandchild. That's what's.
I
in.
like that.
So,
Does anybody have any, do you want to say that again a little slower? So everybody-
sorry. No. So immediate family includes and is limited to the current spouse. It says employees, but this would be the
Yeah.
employee's current spouse, mother, stepmother, father, stepfather, mother-in-law, father-in-law, grandparents, brother, sister, child, stepchild, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, or grandchild.
Okay, so that to me is basically one up generation. So,
So that's just that's the one definition I know we have, because but that's what we use. Sure. So
I appreciate that feedback. Brenda?
yes, as a military family, my husband was in the Connecticut Air National Guard for 24 years before he retired. He was both enlisted and commissioned. As an active volunteer at the base, and as a commander's wife, the relationship of the family to the unit and to the service member is vital in the success of their career and in their mission. In fact, the Air Force has mission first, family always as their slogan. I like the idea of having immediate family. I think that definition is a little too expansive because there are members that may not have been included in some of the volunteer opportunities that families get on base. The parent, not even the parent sometimes, but the spouse and the kids sometimes are a lot more involved in the relationship up on base. I really want to have the Veterans Commission's input on these changes, and I'd rather them being driven by them. This is starting to feel, this can feel like, to someone who's outside, looking like we are trying to control our commissions, that when we don't agree with what they're doing, that we step in and start stacking the membership. If the commission is open to having, expanding the definition of the amount of members on the commission, I'm fine with it. Obviously, including all the different branches of the military, I'm absolutely all for, but to make changes to what the commission, any commission, not just this commission, but to start making changes to any commission, especially when it comes to membership, in the amount of members, I want the commission's input. We're tasking them with a goal, and we need to ensure that we're giving them what they need and what they ask for. And we need to make sure we're not taking control of everything to fit our needs. Let the subject matter experts do their work, trust them in what they're doing, and let them direct us on what their needs are. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to come forward and give us your input?
My
Just
name's
state-
Bob Lincoln.
Your address also, please.
Excuse me?
Your address also, please.
24 Barstow Lane.
Thank you.
I've been a member of the Veterans Commission now for at least my second term. We have functioned as a 5-member group. I'm not totally aware of what the motivation is for expanding to 7. Our meetings are always published and posted like everybody else's meetings. So anyone on the public who is interested in working, attending our meetings or working in any aspect of our work, when we have projects, these projects involve community members. So for example, when we put the wreaths on the veterans' graves in the several cemeteries, the Boy Scouts and now the Girl Scouts also do that with us, with their leaders. We're not doing this in a vacuum by ourselves. And other things, we have the medal, the service medal awards that the state provides. So that involved getting help in organizing that, getting the our town facility to have that, and included state people as well. So we try to involve the public. Now, I don't know if we were asked. I was not here at the meeting where the last meeting that was, I'm aware of, the town council. I was informed about it in advance. I don't know if the topic, that topic came up there, but I don't recall providing input relative to expanding from 5 to 7 members. I can't speak for the other 2 who are still on the commission. I don't know. Oh, there's one of them right here, Mr. Maynard. Okay, join us. So I'm not aware of others who have, could have participated in the discussion with you relative members here, relative to expanding from 5 to 7 and having the 2 additional people not meet the current definition of who is allowed to serve on the commission now. Bobby, I don't know if you have input here. The question is,
Before, if you want to speak, sir, when you're through, you can speak, but I'm going to just need you to state your name and address for the record when we get there.
Yep.
Okay.
So this was also came up relative to having an additional veterans memorial someplace on the green or something like this to honor, as I understand it, those in past world wars who were killed in action, who were residents of Tolland. These two items appeared to come up simultaneously, or maybe one caused the other or something, I don't know. But I don't know if that answers the question that was asked.
I think it does, sir. Thank you. And you, sir?
My name is Pern Maynard. I live on 113 Williams Way in Tolland, Connecticut. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force. I was a radio technician aboard the Flying Command Post in the South Pacific Theater during the Vietnam War. Just quickly, I am in charge of the Masonic Veterans Commission for the state of Connecticut. I am with the American Legion Post 101 and affiliating with Post 14 in Vernon. And I have just been made the person in charge of communications and public relations for the American Legion. So I have a love and a feel for what's going on with veterans. And if you are a veteran or you know a veteran, you know that veterans don't screw around. If something once gets done, it gets done. I feel proud to be part of that. So we have been hearing things and we just wanted to come this evening. Since Rich had been the one in charge, we had let him do his thing. But now we would like to know what it is we're talking about. Because we as the three of us, we certainly are willing to listen and do whatever seems reasonable for veterans. So I guess I'm just here trying to learn what it is we're reading in the updates of the changing the rules of.
Okay, so sir, let me ask you that. Let me ask both of you then.
Yep.
Please have a seat.
Yep.
You do not have to stand, sir. First of all, thank you very much for your service, both of you, to our country. I
I would have
appreciate
been
it.
in earlier, but you've all heard that Air Force expression.
Yeah.
Don't leave your wing behind. We were in second place in our golf league tonight, so I had to be.
You had to be there. That's okay, sir. It's all right. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate both of you being here. So then I think maybe if we kind of go through these, let's have a dialogue to see, you said there's three of you, so the other one's not here right now.
Yes.
So
Greg
Kurt-
Forbush.
Pardon me?
Greg
Forbush,
Forbush is the.
yes. All right, so we have, typically it's a 5-member. So is there anything objectable for you in terms of going to 7? Do you feel like that would be, is there anything good, bad, or indifferent on that from your perspective as the last remaining people on the committee?
Well, as I said, I'm willing to listen and discuss anything. As a veteran, yeah.
Finish up, sir. You can wait. I'll wait for Madam Chair.
He doesn't get to talk until I tell him. You.
As a veteran, everybody that's on that wall has had to submit a DD 214,
Yes.
which is an honorable discharge piece of paper stating that this individual left the service in an honorable manner. So how do we vet the two people that aren't? I mean, that's my first question. How are we going to vet them? They don't have a DD 214. And and the other thing is our meetings are totally open. I mean, anybody can come to a veterans meeting. And hopefully once we get back online and we're meeting here in the building, I mean, anyone is certainly willing to come forth and give their ideas. the things that we've heard about as far as the monument and the, you know, the flag pole and whatever, I totally go along with that. I took pictures of it just the other day. It looks kind of ragged, and we need to do something to make it, you know, very presentable. So we would be more than willing to get involved and see what could be done there.
Okay, so let's, the first thing that's on here is to change it from 5 to 7 regardless, like before we get to the immediate family part. So is there anything objectionable from the switch from a 5 to 7?
Madam Chair, if I may, if I think putting in perspective is that originally that it was brought up by a council member about enlarging it to 7 by if we were going to include the family members as part of it, that was the discussion on it. Originally, when it was originally brought up to have the immediate family members included, then the discussion was, well, then we should increase it to 7 rather than keeping it at 5. So I think that's putting that in perspective as far as how that was proposed. It wasn't just increasing to 7 people. And then the separate issue of the family members, it was basically part and parcel.
They were together?
Yes.
Okay,
Just a quick point, I see Brenda's hand is up, just so you know it's there.
yeah. All right, Brenda, I'll get to you in 1 second. And then the other part with, I'm gonna assume, and you can tell me I'm wholeheartedly wrong, but that you don't have a problem with the definition of a veteran being changed to the code, the 10 US Code 101, to encompass all branches of the military?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, all right.
My daughter is, granddaughter is just about to go into Roxy, Air Force Roxy. And, boy, she's gonna have a fun 2 weeks.
Are you giving her all the stories?
But, no, I have no problem with, we all need to support our veterans.
Wholeheartedly.
Personally, instead of thinking about putting a rock on the front lawn, I would rather we all go in our congressman and get up to pay what they owe the National Guard.
Brenda?
Yes, it's my feeling that we should afford these gentlemen the opportunity to meet with their full membership, even if it's just one more person, discuss it at their meeting, and then come back to us about how they feel about the adding family members and going up to 7. To put them on the spot here when they may not be prepared to discuss this fully and have a chance to do any research they may want to do. I think that's, you know, let's give them the opportunity to meet within with their entire group and have the discussion instead of putting them on the spot here.
Thank you. Lou?
Well, but Madam Chair, through Madam Chair, I understand the concern, but it's also something where I believe that in order to do that, they would have to have a meeting, and that the meetings have been put off until September because there's no chair. I think that that's something that this is something that if they want to discuss it informally, that they will have an opportunity, gentlemen, to present it during the public hearing and make their recommendations, because we have to set this, basically this is set down for an issue regarding the public hearing and whether or not this language is acceptable. I think that's something that we could go forward with based upon the comments that have been put forward to this point, that if there's any concerns, that it could be a voice at that time. That's just my position. I think it is something that would be appropriate. That is something that could be discussed if at the time when the public hearing is put down, just like we have with other issues that we've brought forward in this manner.
I believe we're setting a precedent that's unfortunate, that we can go ahead and make changes to commissions without their input and without them having a proper chance to discuss it. So I'm going on the record and saying that.
Okay, can you just please raise your hand next time so I can call on you? So it's not just everybody talking all at once.
But everybody else is just chiming in sometimes here, Madam Chair, so.
Actually, they're pointing out, they're raising their hands or they're making notes for me to look. So I'd just appreciate that for the order of the meeting. Okay. The other changes that are in here. Have you had an opportunity to look through these changes at all? I know you're kind of in disarray right now with the person resigning from the board, but have the three of you that are left looked at this? Anything in particular that you would like to bring forward? Mr. Maynard?
Yes, I did have a chance to read the 7 pages that pertain specifically to this. And no one really knows what I did in my former life anyway, but I was a salesman and sold the high-tech security and stuff to contractors. So I'm very familiar with negotiating and whatever. And specifications have always been, since time immemorial, been vague and sometimes they don't make a whole lot of sense. So I didn't gain anything by reading about exactly what it is that's coming forth. I think in reference to anything that is going to cost money, number one, we don't have a budget, we have no money. So there'd have to be a commission developed to do anything as far as monuments or anything like that. And if that's already in the works, I didn't see that in this area.
Well, that wouldn't be part of the goals of the committee as put forward here.
Okay.
So that would be separate. Lou?
Sir, I think that it's two separate things. That there's been discussion by veterans bringing forward about a request for something like a more formal wall or more formal recognition. It just happened to be basically concurrent because this was an issue that was brought up as far as enlarging the commission. And there was other people that had brought up the issue about, well, the wall. So right now, those are two separate things. The wall, the commission at the appropriate time, if you feel it's appropriate, could discuss and could work on. But right now, the composition of the commission itself is what we're discussing right now. It's changes as far as the definitions. The main thing is that the changes in the definition so that it matches whenever there's something that's added on as far as an armed force, that the veteran then could be included rather than having to change the code every time that if Space Force then goes by the wayside now, having to change it again. And then is consideration of adding the immediate family members on, which was brought forward again by family members of veterans that I know and that other people on the commission, on the town council know, who have voiced their support of that. I mean, I know that you as veterans, you've been on the VRC for a while. My brother-in-law, Frank Tantillo, was on the VRC a while ago. And then when he couldn't serve any further, his mother and father had expressed that they would have liked to have been part of the commission to actually make recommendations and be actually not just able to participate in the commission and discuss part of or hear what the commission is doing, but actually be a voting member. That's what other people have brought forward as well. And that's why it's the impetus for including the immediate family members. So instead of just being there and participating as you are here as part of the town council discussions, is actually be able to be a voting member and actually have a say in what goes on. And that's what's been brought forward as well, is for people that want to get more involved in an actual way and not just sort of a, input way, but an actual way. And that's where it was a number of veterans and their families who had either relocated here from other towns that have similar things like this in their town, had brought forward about how they were able to be part of it in their town as a family member while their son or daughter is deployed, as opposed to where they wouldn't be able to hear. So if that makes sense.
So thank you, Lou.
Yes.
So I think to kind of summarize this, what we're talking about right now is the changes to the actual composition here. The changes that are in this document that would be discussed would be changing it to the code of all of the different military, all of the different branches, changing the composition to 7 members, allowing immediate family. And then there's just some wording change down to the duties to include to work in conjunction with the town clerk, but nothing else really changes on here. In C on 47A2, we just take out the dates of 2009 and 2010 and just say that it's all members should be appointed to a 3-year term. That's the only change there. So really, the only changes are the code, expansion of 5 to 7, inclusion of family members, and then working in conjunction with the town clerk to create and maintain the honor roll. But, so anything else would be handled by the commission as is. All right,
And I just certainly, as I had stated before with other organizations, I'm planning to be very digital, because as we both know, the Facebooks and the websites for these organizations are in need. And that's what I do. I don't know how many of you have seen my videos and stuff that I do every year, but I put that stuff up online because what I enjoy doing it. And I feel that it will benefit the military organizations by getting us into the 21st century.
I appreciate that.
Just
Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Town Manager Rosen, just a procedural question. So if we go forward and put this in a public hearing and say the commission goes back to their third member and they see an issue or they want to raise a concern, could they speak at the public hearing as a commissioner or send a designee? And if they see the change need to be made, can we make that after the public hearing is closed and amend the proposed changes?
Yeah, if public hearing, certainly, if there's any changes that come up as part of the public hearing, you can certainly make those edits on the fly and change the proposed draft to reflect those changes. And whether you have the whole commission come down or have one person that says we had to vote formally do it or whatever, those would both be fine. But as mentioned, I believe I don't think you have a meeting on the books until September at the moment,
So
so.
that was one of the questions
Yeah.
that I bring up because
Yeah.
we have been informed. We had a special meeting and we would like to have a Zoom special meeting so it can be recorded to discuss. And I suppose we want to do that after just a little more discussion, maybe with a little more, kind of get a touchy feeling of what we're going to be doing. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever getting as many people involved. The problem is getting people to get involved.
Right,
That's a big
right.
problem.
It is, right? That's the harder part, getting the people to volunteer for it. So, and then having your quorum and that, and when you're down to 3, that's, that's tight.
Well, I don't know if this is the proper time or place, but we have to have a chairman before anything goes forward. So we did the straw thing, and I guess my name will be put forward to fulfill the chairmanship. And because we're all, our terms all end next year, which I find kind of funny, first of all, but anyway.
Yeah, I thought we were staggering.
Yeah.
I think 29, so the original thing was 2009 and 2010. So there were 2 shall terminate on 2009 and 3 on 2000.
Yeah, they're concurrent after that.
And then, well, but no, because
There were 2-year terms and then there was the other ones had 3-year terms originally. They're all running concurrently now.
Okay, all right. So yeah, that is, you're all in it together. All right, so with that, if you guys hold a meeting and have feedback and that, I think that would be beneficial to definitely bring forward.
Because I understand that's the first thing that has to happen, we have to have a chair. Again, it's not the time or place, but we are very positive and we're already going to take care of the other 2 things you're already talking about. They're in the works, but we got to have a chairman, so I can't talk.
Yeah. All right.
Madam Chair, if I can-
Yeah.
The last question would be is that, is looking at it and seeing if we were to add those 2, the immediate family members, if, given the fact that that there's the issue regarding quorum, if you think 7 would be too many and that therefore, would 5 be enough, where it'd be 3 actual veterans essentially and 2 family members, immediate family members, if you feel that would be sufficient, or if you feel that you would need to, that you would like to expand it to 7, that's something that could be discussed as well. Given the fact that I know that there's been issues sometimes regarding quorum and regarding other issues, even with having 5. So if keeping it, I guess the question would be is, first question would be, if you feel that adding the immediate family members in would be something that you would support based upon the statements that have been made so far. I believe that the answer would be in the positive, but I don't need to speak for you. And then the other one would be then is if it's something that you feel that would then need to be expanded to 7, or if you feel that 5 would be sufficient, given the issue that you've had with quorum. So that's something that that would be my requests as far as the definitive answers from the group, whatever may come forward. And that I think that the best way is if it's something that you can't have, if you can schedule a special meeting, again, as the acting chair of the VRC, that you could decide as far as what would happen, and if you wanted to do that prior to the public hearing, so that you could get a discussion in this, or if it's something that you just have an informal discussion as a group, just sort of informally, and then if any of you have these answers or have recommendations, sending them as you would to the town council email, saying that, with you as the, these are some of the recommendations that you would bring forward based upon your informal discussions. And then that way, that could be the town council that way as well. If that works, Madam Chair, that would be my suggestion.
I think I am okay with that. Brenda?
Yes, I'd like to request that we just postpone this until we know that they can have a meeting. We're asking them to schedule a special meeting within 2 weeks and do notice for it. I think that's a little tight, even if it is just 3 people. It would also give an opportunity for any other veterans to attend their meeting and give input, and maybe even noticing what's going on here this evening. Other veterans may step in to fill roles that are open on this commission. I don't see why there is an urgency to get this done for August 10th. There's nothing that's coming up that says that we have to get this done before August 10th. Let's be accommodating to these gentlemen and these veterans, and let them have a meeting when they can at their leisure. And then we can get back together and find out a good time to put this on and what their recommendations would be. If I was a member of any other board and commission and I was watching this, I'd feel pretty uncomfortable seeing how we're not accommodating the good work that this commission does. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say, I noticed that there's a resident's hand that's up, and just wanted to make clarification that this isn't a portion of the meeting that's public participation. The only members of the public that are talking are appointed members of the board, so just want to make that point clear.
Thank you.
I do understand that, but I also understand that since I wrote the ordinance that you're discussing, you may want to have the history that you obviously don't have, and are making a recommendation for an August 10th public hearing, that you may want the information. And I'll be happy to wait until August 10th, but you may want the information ahead of time.
Kathy, we can get to you at public participation.
Are you going to do one at the end of the meeting? Because I'll be happy to wait.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see, just at the bottom of the corner.
Do you have that? All right, well, actually, all right, I'm gonna exercise chairwoman's prerogative at this point. Since you wrote the original ordinance, Kathy?
Yes?
Way.
The original ordinance was written on February 13th, I believe in 2007. I wrote it, but I wrote it with a group of at least 5, perhaps 7 veterans. So what you have in front of you, which was the first document, was written by very, very precise input by 5 gentlemen. I'm sorry, 6 gentlemen and 1 woman, who were very specific about the fact that there would be veterans sitting on the commission. They did not wish to have family members because they felt that it should be troops who had served active duty in one form or another. I do respect the input by the gentleman who is saying that families are actively involved in their lives, but the people who serve on the commission do have to show documentation that they were active duty. I do support, and I do think you need to know that any branch, and there are new branches since this was drawn up in 2007, every branch was supposed to be represented on the commission. They were very firm that it should be a workable group. 5 was the number chosen. The what was the other point? What was the other questionable? Number, whether there were family members or not. And was there another point you wanted covered tonight? I forget. Was there a third point?
No, I think it was just family and going to 7.
Yeah. One of the things that I would say that originally the original group did, because there were several active conflicts and wars that went on in the early years of the commission, and there were awards and gifts given to troop members coming home, and they were presented by council when groups came home. I do know that members on the commission made face-to-face contact with these troops when they returned. And I do know that there was some personal involvement when there was concern on the condition of some troops and their mental health when they came home. And I know there were some recommendations to the VA and other agencies that was beyond what the scope of the commission was, but that was one of the outshoots and one of the reasons that they felt it was important that they were active duty, previously active duty people on the commission, that they had firsthand knowledge of what people coming back from war, active duty troops obviously, had gone through, and what they knew the signs that they were looking for. I mean, that's just a separate side of this whole thing. So, I mean, I think there were some real well thought out reasons for why they felt it was important that there were active duty members on the commission. One of the things that I think that the commission over the years has recognized, but it was under the purview of the council, was the monument on the green. While it was a memory and remembrance of those service members, it was always the maintenance of under this purview of the council. I think that if council would allow it, I think the commission would be very happy to take on some of that, or at least oversee some of the maintenance of that monument. I think that would involve families as well as others who are interested in helping our service members. I also think if the council is hearing from people who want to get involved, that wall of memory in the town hall has always been an updated and up-to-date memory and memorial to people who have served. We are the only town, and that was one of the things that we researched when we put this ordinance together. We have always had an up-to-date on every war, on every service member who served, on anybody who moved to town and wanted to join our rolls, something no other town has had, because our roll could always be updated because it's computer updated. Also, part of that wall of honor has up-to-date news stories on anyone who wishes to submit information. No other town is doing that sort of thing. So family members can get involved on that score as well. Permanent Celebration Committee is always looking for Memorial Day input from members. So there are lots of ways, if you are hearing from people, to steer them to the commission, and the commission will be involved, getting them involved. And certainly in the past, the commission has been very involved in working with our service members coming to town, returning from battle, and coming to our town. So I think it would behoove us to have a conversation with the current, and I would be happy to get you the names of, or they could get you the names of the past members who've served on the commission before you make decisions on where you want to take this commission down the road. Thank you for the moment, indulging me those few minutes.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, ma'am, for your input. That just so you understand as well that, again, these changes were promulgated by my discussions with veterans.
I understand.
Veterans that have also served on the VRC, but are no longer residents of Tolland, and that as such they could not serve any further. And I understand your position on this. I think that, and I don't think that anybody is looking at taking away anything from the VRC or what it's done. they've done an outstanding job. That these, but it's also something that, as you said, that it's not just active duty members that are acutely aware of the issues of people coming back from being deployed and being overseas and being in war, but the family members also are the ones that are dealing with it as well. And I think even more intimately than some people understand. And so that's why you've had members approaching, family members approaching, asking me also included it as part of the VRC as well. Because although the PCC is something that deals with all the different groups and all the different functions, that the VRC is one that's specifically for veterans, and that's why they've approached on that issue. So I think that there's I understand what you're saying, but this is not something that is just sort of haphazard and without thought. This is something that that I, as a person who made this proposal, took very serious consideration and spoke to many people regarding it, and took the input from veterans that live around town and that have previously lived in town, as well as family members, and before I brought this forward. So I understand what you're saying, but I think it's also something that we need to also address and try and keep up with the needs of the community and the desires of the community as well, including the family members to be included as part of this. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Brenda? Brenda?
She's trying to unmute, she has an issue.
Sorry, the battery's apparently dying in my mouse, so it was not moving to get me to unmute. I wanted to say a big thank you to Kathy Bach for giving us some background. Gives me a lot to think about on why this commission was created, the information going forward. And I'm going to want to reiterate that this should be postponed until we can have this conversation that Kathy has proposed, and allowing the commission to have their meeting so that they can have a discussion. We want to do what's right for the members of the commission, and historically what the commission is meant for. And we can't do that by trying to stick to a public hearing that's in 2 weeks. That again, there's no vital need for us to move forward at this moment.
Thank you. All right, does anybody else have anything? All right, then Ed, sir.
I'll just make one last statement. So the reason I'm here is because I kind of give you a little indication of what I did in my former life. August 10th was a red flag to me. Why something was happening before the commission could meet and get itself back online again. And I just felt that it should have been done, when everybody's in session and things are happening. That's all. But it sounds like it's going forward.
I think it's just something that that this was a date that, there wasn't any firm dates or there was no specific reason. It's just generally that when we set a matter down for a public hearing, that it's usually done. Mr. Rosen, I think that you could address that. 2 weeks or a certain date, certain after the last meeting when we set the public hearing.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Ruba. So, I was asked to put this back on the agenda, and the next step is to set the public hearing, because when you change an ordinance, it requires a public hearing to do so. So when we have it on an agenda, it's always the subsequent meeting that is the public hearing. It just so happens the next meeting is August 10th. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and this has been on the town council's agenda 2 other times, I believe.
Yes.
2 other times,
Yes.
right? It has been discussed. So at this point, with the language being where it was, the next step would be to put it on for a public hearing. So it's not the first time the town council has talked to this. So let me just apologize if, I know you guys have had some shakeup and some with resignations and such, but I believe the chairperson was at the other meetings. So I don't know if information hadn't been
Yes, it
relayed
was.
back and forth. So
There's been conversation, yes.
yes, so I think that may be part of this too, with the chairperson resigning. You guys are now down to 3, and I don't know if getting up to speed or if you're just like coming in because you haven't officially been elected as the chair yet. So I appreciate that. And I just want to get a sense of where everybody on the council is. Brenda, I know where you are, but I'd like to get a sense of where everybody else is on the council from a date perspective. Mr. Jones?
I would be fine with it being, if we change the motion, we postpone and have the date be set as, I would assume the second meeting of the month would be the 24th. If that provides enough ample time for the commission to work with town hall to get a special meeting organized, I think that would be fine with me. That's amenable to the rest of the council. Otherwise, I'm willing to go forward with a public hearing and strongly encourage all 3 members that are active to attend and provide their input, either as individuals or as a group.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't write that down.
No worries.
Okay. Kurt?
I think if we set a stake for an August 24th, or if that's the second meeting of the month, whatever day that is, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, Lou?
I would be open for moving it to the 24th, Madam Chair.
John?
My sense from the gentleman is that they would be more comfortable if we postponed it, so I would be in favor of that as well.
All right. Brenda, you've already said you wanted to postpone it.
Yes, actually, what I think the best option here is let the gentleman and anybody else who attends their meeting, like maybe Kathy Bach and the original members of the commission or who created this, to get together, review what we've proposed as changes, come back with their recommendations, and we find a middle ground, or we do what they want. I would prefer to do what they recommend and set the public hearing based on what they bring back to us, rather than set a public hearing on what we have written here, and the commissioners may come to us with something different.
Okay, thank you. So I'm good with the 8/24, but I would like to maybe just say, if you guys have the opportunity to meet before then and go over all of this, if you have any strong input that you would like to give to us prior to, we will be able to discuss it. At any point, if you want to come as public participation, and as you are a commission that is reportable to the town council. So the town council sets the parameters in which you operate on. So at that point, you could come to any meeting if you wanted to come to the August 10th meeting, if that gives you guys time, even individually, if you all want to come again during 7A of any agenda is reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. So you are a committee that is responsible to the council. So at any point you can interact with us, send emails, come to the August 10th meeting. We'll actually be having a meeting next Tuesday, or is it Wednesday? What day are we having a meeting?
It's a special.
No, oh, that's right, that's a special meeting. So that's special. So August 10th, if you wanted to come at that point, you could give us any feedback that you had during our 7A of our agenda, to let us know if you've met, if you haven't met in that. And then again, on the 24th, if we go ahead and set this to the 24th, you'll have the opportunity then also. But I am recognizing the turmoil that you guys have had in your committee in that, and I value your opinion on what we're doing with the commission overall. So anything that you have for us prior to then, I would encourage you to just bring it, send an email to the whole town council, or again, please come to the meeting and speak to us. With that said, I don't know, do we want to actually do the motion to move to the 8/24?
You may do so if you want, if you wish.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm willing to make that motion. So Steve Jones, I make a motion that the following resolution be introduced and set down for public hearing on August 24th at 7 p.m. in the Zoom remote conference center and/or 6th floor council chambers. And that draft resolution would be it resolved that the town council amends chapter 47A of the town code, ordinance 77, Veterans Recognition Commission.
Move it, I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Steve,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Brenda,
No,
Aye.
aye, so that passes. Thank you very much, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming and giving us the information. I look forward to hearing from you soon. That gets us to 9.3, continued discussion of the American Rescue Plan potential money usage.
Okay, hi, everybody, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So this is the second time that, we've had this on the agenda, and I imagine that it probably won't be the last time. So just to kind of recap where we are with this, the federal government has a federal response to COVID-19, the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, or sometimes you see it as ARPA. And it's slated to provide fiscal recovery funds to state and local municipalities, a lot, I think mostly on a per capita basis. We've been notified that we're slated to get $4,326,206 in total funds, and it's being given to us in two segments, two tranches of $2,163,102. We did get our first tranche, and it's one this year and then one the following year. But it came with a lot of instructions about how these funds could potentially be used. At the last meeting, we talked about some potential options that staff had come up with to use the money to reflect a couple of the quadrants of what's allowable usages for this money. The four quadrants being to respond to the pandemic and its negative economic impacts, or basically pay for things that haven't been paid for, to restore cuts in public services caused by revenue losses, to invest in infrastructure, specifically water, sewer, or broadband, or to provide bonus pay to essential workers. We had come forward with 5 different ideas at the last meeting, and in the last meeting, there were a couple of other ideas that were pitched as well. Ultimately, it comes down to town council's decision, how you ultimately want to use the money. But we do have an update for you in terms of the timeline, whereas we originally thought that we needed to make a decision about how we were going to use this money by August or possibly October of this year. It's since, with further guidance clarification, we found out that we actually have a couple of years to decide what to do with the money. I think in actually 2024. So you have 2 to 3 years to decide how to spend this money. So there's no rush to make this decision. But that being said, if you want to keep continuing the conversation, it's probably a good idea to do so. And we do have the same 5 items that were brought up at the last meeting back on your packet tonight. We also have some clarifications to some of the other things that were raised at the previous meeting. Namely, there's a memo from our Public Works Director, Scott Lappin, who's here tonight. Thank you, Scott, for being here. There's a memo that details some more cost projections for water and sewer line expansions based on the discussions that were had at the meeting last time. And then also, I think there was also a request about a water tank that the town owns to refurbish it or to replace it. And so that's also in your packet about how much that would potentially cost. And then lastly, there was another, in light of the recent rainfall that's happened, there was some discussion about maybe bolstering drainage systems in town. And the DPW director put together some wording about that as well. So that kind of sets the stage of what, if you want to continue the discussion tonight. I don't expect, again, I don't think there's any vote that's going to be taken tonight, but we did get some better estimates. And I think, I'm not sure if Mike Salitro is in the audience. I can't tell, but Mike is the gentleman that he's a representative from a company called Surtex that provides our municipal broadband. Mike, are you there?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to verify. Mike is, he's the representative from Surtex, which is the company that services our municipal broadband infrastructure, which connects our redundant loop of fiber in town. And Mike has worked with Lisa Hancock and I to further vet out the broadband idea that's detailed in your packet. So he's available. We asked him to come tonight at request of council at the last meeting. If there's any broadband specific questions, Mike Solitro can step up to the plate to answer. So I know we're down a few counselors in the room right now, but we still have a quorum. I know Kurt's and Brenda are there still. But I guess that just sort of sets the stage for the conversation. Not sure what to do now since we don't have a chairperson in the room.
I could speak as the
Okay,
vice chair,
sure.
so I guess maybe just to keep the conversation going, Lisa, if you're able to do like a high level of what the reimbursement, I saw all the tables and you mentioned it was a very complicated formula to calculate that. Can you just provide like a high level summary for the public about what that option entails, that 2.5 or 2.6 million option that was listed?
Sure. I'd like to caveat the whole
Yeah.
item because we got a little more information today, and this is just an ongoing clarification process. There's an interim rule. The Treasury is going to eventually approve a final rule, but there's a lot of information out there what constitutes revenue. And the assumption that we went on in trying to read the rule is to look at revenues that include provision of government services or programs and charges for that, tax revenue, things like that. So when I calculated, or actually my assistant helped calculate this and put it all together, we took into account the general fund budgeted revenues. We took recreation and fire services for the fire marshal, things like that. Today, in speaking with Coventry's finance director, she's under the impression that it's entity-wide. So that could change the whole calculation altogether. But if I've got questions out to the GFOA national organization, we have a discussion group there, which she's reaching out to the Treasury. So we're trying to get it clarified. But in any respect, the revenue that is presented, the revenue of lost estimate that's presented in tonight's packet is based on the revenues that I just stated. And what the rule requires you to do is to look at several years historical trending for revenues. And you get an estimated growth rate over those years. So we did that calculation and our growth rate was only maybe 1.5%. The revenue growth rate wasn't as high as there's a minimum rate that they'll let you use of 4.1%. So had we just gone on our straight revenues, we would not have really been able to have a revenue loss calculated. But we were able to use a 4.1% growth rate, which gave us the advantage of taking those revenues, factoring it in through June 30th of 2019. So you could use your June 30th fiscal year as your base year. However, the year to compare it to must be done on a calendar year basis. So we had to go back and calculate the revenue over 2 fiscal periods through December 31st of 2020 to get a revenue loss in the calculation. There was no way we could really do one for the 21 fiscal year, even though we finished 21, because you have to go through December. So that made it impossible to try to get 2 years. But to do 1 year on this methodology and I've included everything in the packet of how we did it, it came out to almost a $2.6 million revenue loss, where we really didn't have that much type of revenue loss. But because of the growth calculation, all that, it gives us that. That would allow us to request to use those funds towards a revenue loss. However, you're not allowed to use it to put it back into fund balance. You're not allowed to use it to pay off debt and interest. You're not allowed to use it to offset tax rates for the future. However, I did include some of the things from the interim rule, which would include pay-as-you-go maintenance of your infrastructure, such as roads. They specifically talk about modernization of cybersecurity, which is an area that we do need some attention to in this town. Our roads need a lot of attention. I'm just giving you ideas of what they recommend. I'm not telling you what you have to do. So there's a number of other things, but protection of your critical infrastructure. We have a fire improvement project that we had planned on issuing $5 million or $4 million in debt, depending on what we get for a grant. Certainly that could be used to offset, 4 million could be used to offset that rather than issuing debt. These are just suggestions. I really need to find out from the Treasury, and if they change the interim rule, if we could use it, if we could use this as the calculation, then certainly that gives us a lot more advantages than the other limitations set forth in the 4 categories. You can use it to the revenue, to the extent of the revenue loss. So what the other advantages that, as Mike mentioned earlier, we found out, at October 31st, we do have to file an annual report. It could be 0. If we haven't spent anything, haven't done anything, the report, we have to file it, it could be 0. So you don't have to make your decision right away, which gives you more time to really think about what you effectively want to do with the funds. Once I get additional information, that could give you a lot more opportunity of looking at other ways where it'll benefit the community. I know one other where the council or some council members were led to believe that other communities are using it to apply towards fund balance. That is not really what is happening in Coventry. What they have decided to do was to take recreation and to pay for all of the programs in recreation with the extent of their loss in revenue. They will still charge the community to the revenue for those programs, for the fees for those programs. And what will happen is that although there would not be any expenditures within that fund, the revenue would still be there. And essentially that revenue will flow through to fund balance, but it's not the ARPA funds flowing through fund balance because that is strictly prohibited. I think I've outlined everything.
No, that was definitely helpful. And the only other question I had, and then I'll go back to the chair, was if now that we know that there's an extended period of time where we have to make this decision, do you have to recalculate a lot of this, or is it kind of still as you're learning more, you might need to adjust those calculations?
I would have to adjust those calculations once I figure out what revenues they're going to actually make us include. Now, if they go entity-wide, strictly entity-wide, now you're looking at capital projects, you're looking at special revenue funds, you're looking at, well,
That's part of the
educational grants, and unless they're federal grants, you exclude federal grants. There's so much involved in that calculation. So I think it's best to wait and see what the Treasury comes out with, because many of us have written, including myself, to the Treasury before the comments timeline closed to recommend some changes to the rules. So we're waiting to hear from them, as well as getting clarification, because when, like I said, when you look at the rules, it talks about the word budgeted funds. It talks about general revenues. And it does explain general revenues as fees for services. Well, a capital improvement program, you're not charging a fee for a service. So there's a lot of clarification that's still necessary to really accurately project this. But at least, this is something, if it's based on what we're interpreting it, it shows about almost a $2.6 million loss, which again opens up your ability to do other things within reason, within the rules, but a lot more than what was set forth in the 4 areas.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thank you. So the 2.6 that you're talking about, would that number then change for the second year? You'd have to redo it again for the second year?
Right, you would take into your calculations for the second year and then say if it was 3 million or whatever, you would be able to, I keep looking at you, but I know.
I know.
I apologize to the public. You would need to recalculate it, and if, for example, if we had 2.5 million in this particular calculation, we only got 2.1 million for the first year. So that means there's 400,000 left over from this year that on the next round of funding that comes in for the second year, you'd be able to take the 400,000 left over plus whatever else is calculated and have the whole amount if it's available in as a loss in 12/21.
So, thank you, Lisa, for going and finding all this out and doing the calculation on it. Because I think, well, and for also figuring out that we don't have to have this done by August
Right.
31st. Those two things, I think, give us a lot more to talk about and a lot more opportunity than rushing to find a way to spend $4.2 million in like 4 weeks. So I appreciate the work put into this. And Mike, I think I have one procedural question.
Sure.
If the town council decided to go forward with looking at this from a revenue, a lost revenue perspective, like you said, that does open up a lot of opportunity for the town to look at being able to utilize this money in the most effective way. And I would want us to stay true to the intent of this. You know, this is regarding COVID funds and what we can do with it for the town. At that point, would it be incumbent upon us to put any kind of regulations around that? Right off the bat, the first thing I'm thinking about is if you're going to say we've got $2.6 million that we can have based off of the revenue calculation, I don't want anybody coming forward with recurring expenses because this is only going to be here for a couple of years. So anything that's going to create a recurring expense that the taxpayer is going to get walloped with in 2 years because ARPA funding goes away, I would not want to see us consider. So is that something where after this ARPA money comes in, we have the opportunity to put some sort of sunset policy around making sure that we're using this in the best interest of the town with one-time expenses or something that isn't going to last longer than the funds are there?
I think locally you can decide, once you decide high level how you want to take the money, let's say if you want to go the revenue route, you as the council, I imagine you can set parameters around how that money is further divvied up so long as it's in line with the guidance of how revenue can be taken and spent. Because again, like Lisa said, you can't just take it and put it in your fund balance or in your stabilization fund. It has to be project driven. And specifically, if you tie it to COVID, that is the intent of this money to begin with. It's, you know, yes, you can use it on roads. Yes, you can use it on potentially sidewalks and stuff like that. But is that the intent of the money? Potentially not. That's up to, you know, the people of tomorrow to figure that out, right? So, I think you can put parameters on it. Ultimately, your first decision is going to be if you want to take it as one of the other 3 quadrants, those already have structured guidelines around it. So if you want to take it as a project, an infrastructure project, sewer, water, broadband, of which we have given you some selections in your packet, you would be bound by the federal guidelines, not local guidelines. You'd have to adhere to you know, their prevailing wages, procurement law, things like that. So that's already done for you. But if you take it as revenue, you now have local control over it as long as you're following the guidelines for revenue expenditure. That's my thought on it. I don't know if that's about right. I mean, I think they can do that. They can create a means by which to divvy out that money amongst projects. But you know, the more projects you kind of use this money towards, the more reporting there's going to be, the more oversight there's going to be. So you might want to limit the number of total projects you use this money on so that you don't have 4 or 5, 6 projects simultaneously running, each requiring staff oversight, prevailing wage calculations, things like that.
Administrative.
Administrative, yeah.
I hear you. Kurt?
That's,
Were you saying something, Lisa?
no.
No, we can see you.
All right. So my thoughts are this, especially since now we have more time, which is excellent. There was some discussion previously about other towns forming like subcommittees of their council or people like that to kind of keep an eye on this. And that's something I think I would like to see, because maybe a couple counselors can work directly with staff, Lisa specifically. As was mentioned multiple times, this is changing pretty much day to day, if not week to week. So I mean, I don't really see a need to make a rush decision. I would like to have a couple council people keep an eye and kind of start formulating ideas, because I don't want this to be a every meeting thing where we get wish lists from people and we don't really know what we can spend the money on, how much money we actually can spend, and stuff like that. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Brenda?
Yes, thank you. Are we going to consider asking our technology task force to have some input to take a look at the broadband? They were specifically set up to help us with technology decisions being made by the town, and we should take advantage of their expertise. So that's one recommendation. The other is, we had all agreed, I thought, on giving the money that the health district had requested. Can we still go forward with that? Because I assume that them getting their money quicker rather than later, and it's such a minuscule amount, but it's probably extremely beneficial for them to get that money for their projects. Mr. Rosen had mentioned that he wanted to limit the amount of projects. Is that specifically because how short-staffed our town is, and we just don't have the bandwidth to add extra projects to our town?
Regarding the technology. Oh, okay. I'm going to take the first question regarding the health district. There's really no issue whatsoever unless the council decides that's something you don't want to do. You can take an action tonight if you so desired to make a motion to approve the use of the amount that they requested. We can make sure it's all taken care of, and that could be my first report of expenditures on October 31st. So that's no issue whatsoever if you'd like to do that.
Right, and to the question about multiple project, it's really more a limit on the money. So the 4.3 million sounds like a large number, but in construction world, it doesn't go that far. And many of the projects we have in your packet are $1 million a mile, $2 million a mile. So roughly you're getting a mile or two for stuff or water sewer line expansion. If you go the broadband route, and again, Mike Salitro's in the audience, who can tell you more about that, but $4.3 million gets you roughly 1,500 homes connected to broadband plus the business district. So you're, in a way, you have to consider how much value you're getting for the 4.3 million serve with that money. So it's not so much a staff limitation, but it's more about the limitation.
And we're fortunate that we built in a project manager for starting in January.
Yeah.
As a new hire for the town. So that would be useful.
Right. I have one more. I'm sorry, I missed it on my list. Some towns are doing some grant applications for businesses and nonprofits in their town, where they set aside a certain amount of the money so that the business or nonprofit can apply for a grant showing that they had a negative impact, obviously, with the COVID pandemic, and that we give them a grant. It is for relief and revitalization and stabilization of these businesses and nonprofits. I'd really like us to take a look at some of the towns that are doing that and to consider that, to reinvest in our town, to take this opportunity to help our small businesses recover, to, I think is an excellent opportunity. I know the EDC had mentioned it at one point. We had mentioned it at the very beginning of the pandemic. And I think that we should take some money and set it aside, for like a $5,000 or a $10,000 grant, whatever we decide, make the application process very quick and easy. And, reinvest in our town, show our small businesses and our nonprofits that we recognize that they struggled during this pandemic, and that we're here to offer them assistance. The small businesses have been wonderful to our community, and I think that we should be supporting them, and the nonprofits too.
Thank you, Brenda. And actually, I was just talking to Chamber of Commerce about those sorts of grants, and Mike, Lisa, just to kind of give you guys a heads up of where the Chambers of Commerce are looking on for that. They're looking specifically at businesses that had the under 10 employees that did not qualify for the PPP. Also nonprofits, because they didn't have any employees, but yet they still had expenses and they still had services that they were providing to the communities. So they also did not qualify for the PPP. So the Wyndham Chamber of Commerce, when they were talking to me about it, it was, they actually have some wording that they're working on. And I was reaching out to the Tolland Chamber of Commerce to get what they were doing, but they were looking very specifically at a set number of dollars and a very simple application. And one of the things was that those businesses did not qualify for the no interest or the forgivable PPP loans. So it's not a huge populace, but it's definitely a populace that has been hurt over the pandemic by not qualifying for any of those state and federal grant opportunities. So when I get more information, I can make sure the whole town council gets that. We can maybe discuss that at some point also. And John, you want to say something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Kurt. There is so much here, and some of these plans are going to cost a lot more than what we're getting. We would need a plan to finish what we start. So I agree with Kurt. I think we should have some sort of a subcommittee, because I can see us getting bogged down with this for a long time to come. And there's going to be a lot of different people with their opinions on what we should do. And like Mr. Rosen said, I don't think this kind of money is going to go very far. And if we do start something, we need to have a plan to finish it. So if we're talking about extending that line up to the vineyards, we have to know how we're going to pay for the rest of it. I love the idea, but I think a subcommittee would be able to really be more focused on that, and then be able to report back to the full council, and just to get a better idea. And I think it would be a lot more efficient if we did it that way.
Thank you. I'm starting to agree and lean that way, I think. Lou,
I'm all good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
you're good? Is there anything else?
Was it in regards, I stepped away for a moment, I think I heard Kurt, as I was exiting, mention the idea of a subcommittee.
Subcommittee, like the staff and like 2 town council people, like 2 elected officials to sit down, kind of like go through and hone everything in to come up with, so it's not every meeting that we're talking about it, but we've got people that are working on it with staff. And that, I think that was, Kurt, did I summarize that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'd be amenable to that. And I don't know if there's any particular regulations you have to go through to establish that, or if it would just be the council and at our leisure, especially with upcoming changes, 9/1 might be here after November or whatever, whatever happens, that it's flexible. We don't say, okay, it has to be these 2 people, or that we maybe have 1 majority, 1 minority representation in addition to town staff be outlined as the subcommittee members.
Reading my mind.
Okay.
I think it's okay. I mean, you have a couple of other subcommittee type ideas, but it would likely have to be posted to the public and open for, anybody to be able to attend. So as long as minutes have to be taken, because if it's a designated subcommittee of council, you need to go through the FOIA process. That's all we were just talking about.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I would think that, it would have to go through the regular. I don't know if, again, would that be something that we would do, like an issuance of this subcommittee with a sunset date, like on it? I would assume, so it's not an ongoing like policy.
Well, it wouldn't, I don't know if you'd have to create an ordinance
Yeah.
to allow for it.
It'd just be a subcommittee.
Subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so with that said, I know you have, the person here from Mike from Synergy. So we know Certex, sorry. I don't know what else I think. And we also have Andy Powell here, who is on, I think you're actually the chair of our tech committee. So if everybody is okay with it, I would like to kind of review that a little bit more. I appreciate, again, Lisa, all the work done on the revenue portion of this. You've given us a lot to look at here, and you've opened up a world of opportunity for us, so I appreciate that. And then we have attachment C, which is the broadband portion. So I'd like to kind of discuss that a little bit, because we had a lot of questions in the last meeting on how this would work, the built-in expense that would be there, how we would know for sure that people would want to undertake this, because a lot of my concern was around the fact that this has a built-in expense increase every year. So making sure that we know if we were to go down this route, that we have the interest and the demand from the residents. But before we kind of dig into the specifics here on the schematics and having Certex talk, Andy, do you have anything in relation to broadband expansion? Right now, what we're looking at would be broadband expansion. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the packet.
Have not seen the packet, but I can comment on that.
Can you come forward?
Oh, sorry.
please? It starts on page 47, Andy, and there's a schematic map on page 48 that would be looking at some new builds out.
I guess the first question on the new build out, and I'm speaking, Andy Powell is chairman of the Tolland Technology Committee that was formed specifically as part of the build out process for the fiber network that we had in place. We started out that project with 32 different ISP connections with no redundancy, no ability to increase capacity, unable to support the requirements for production for the town. And we moved it into a rather robust and expansive system that included not only the town, but also the boards of education, that allowed them to upgrade their phones from old analog systems to digital, and also supplied additional security capability as well. Part of the conversation as we were going through this build out was in my conversations with Manager Werbner, and we also had conversations with Mayor, who was the mayor of Manchester at the time? I just forgot his name. We had a conversation with the mayor of Manchester and also the mayor of North Haven, because they were looking at the potential of going ISP, being a service provider for internet services, and you basically become a regulated utility and then have to start worrying about the expenses of maintaining it, the service provider level, and oh, by the way, the content that's now being driven across that wire. And because there were a lot of regulatory issues that came into play, I would have to see what Manchester ended up doing. I don't think they went to full implementation. I don't think that North Haven did as well. I think that if we look at this, and if we look at it in terms of resident access using town supplied fiber, is going to be problematic at best, because you decide who's getting what, who's going to pay for it, who's going to support it. If you're looking at an investment to enhance town services, extending out to, I think there were a couple of firehouses that didn't get full fiber connectivity, that would be an appropriate use. But the Tolland Technology Commission would be more than happy to reconvene to go through this, but it was our understanding at the time that we were going to run the double fiber and pull a lot of extra lines because it was more beneficial to buy additional segments, additional couples at the time of pulling the wire. So we have capacity built into that system. So I would be very concerned about the town providing internet service to folks over time.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask that you stay in that seat and listen to this presentation
Cool.
from Surtech. And I think at some point, it may be useful for the technology committee to possibly sit down with Surtech to see, review their plan
Mhm.
that they have here, and just get the historical knowledge that you guys have linked up with what you know about what was already done in town, if that's possible.
Mhm.
So, Mike, with all of that, I guess I kind of stated my questions on this is getting a little more detail around the operating costs, the subscription costs, like how we kind of came up with all of this. And if we've done any kind of, or if Surtech's has done any kind of polling to understand, A, the need, or B, the desire from the people in these areas that we're talking about here. So I don't know if,
Yeah.
this one-
So, hi, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So, Lisa Hancock and I have been in touch with Mike Solitro, who is on the call. Again, his company provides municipal fiber in the community. And so they were a natural starting point to start talking about what is possible for us. When we started the conversation with Mr. Solitro, we were under the impression that, we had to make a quick decision about this money and everything. So we wanted to try to see what we could get for this money. So what we asked Mike to do was to run two things. One was what's the cost of a full build out of the entire community with broadband? And I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was about $24 million.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay, we're not getting $24 million, we're getting $4 million. So what does $4 million look like? And I don't want to speak for Mike, but if you are okay with him speaking, I just want to say that what Mike did was he looked at our existing area, which is on the map there. That's the, you have it right there.
It's the white, Michael. It's the white section on the
Yeah.
map.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So we've got the white section on the map is our existing broadband network. That's where all the fiber points are in town, all the municipal assets. And then the green portion is what it would be the new builds to pick up. This is basically what we would get. This white plus the green is the area that we're talking about getting for about $4.3 million. Now, the way that this was also sort of said was this is what the federal government is willing to pay for, and broadband is specifically called out as an allowable use of the ARP funds because there are so many more people who are working from home now. It would make us more competitive with software companies and businesses that would say, hey, Tolland's got a vibrant built out broadband network. I'd like to locate there, something like that. So we asked Mike, to put together what 4.3 million gets us, but also if the community was interested in expanding that further to perhaps, as John said earlier, is to maybe put some other phases out there in the capital plan to pick up the rest of the community to get, a little bit closer to full build out. So again, as long as you're okay with Mr. Solitro speaking, maybe Mike, can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you came to this diagram?
I can speak. I'd like to speak to what Michael, the IT director, he had a question. He was concerned about the town, coming under all these requirements. That really, the model that we look at is not to have, the town doesn't actually operate the internet service. We bring in an internet service provider that actually provides the service to the town. Town really owns the asset in our model. So, we're doing this currently in New Shore and Block Island. We're building a fiber optic network. They're going to own the asset. We're bringing in Crocker Communications from Greenfield, Massachusetts. They're actually going to run the ISP service, and we're going to operate the network for the town on the town's behalf. So it's really Crocker Communications and ourselves that are operating the network for them. That's it's really, you own the dark fiber. It's kind of the same thing that you have today, is really the way our model works. So, I can expand upon that at some point, offline. I'd be more than happy to present that, even further, how this works.
I think that's kind of the point of what I was saying before is, Andy, if you think it's possible for you to get the technology.
Absolutely. I think it's probably a good time to do that, because while we were involved, and clearly in those 7 years, you know, the rules and the methodologies have kind of changed a little bit, and they're, you know, not having to be an ISP provider, not having to do that sort of work, that does take some of the segments out, some of the responsibilities out. But I think having the full team together to go through the proposal, look at the benefits, we'd be more than happy to do that. And our folks are all from the industry. So we have cable experience, we have network experience, we have cyber experience, we have end user experience. And, you know, we're prepared to walk this through and would love to have the conversation.
Mike?
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial because the model has really changed a lot, and we kind of selected this, you know, because we really didn't, you know, you really want the goal eventually of having an open access network. So you could really change out ISPs if you wanted. You could have multiple ISPs running on this network. And that's not something that's happening right now in the commercial market. You know, really what you think of when you have an internet service provider, you're thinking of Comcast, which actually owns the cable plant. And that's not what we're saying to the municipalities. We're saying to them, listen, you build it, you know, we'll help you build it, we'll design it for you, and then we'll operate it for you, and we'll bring an ISP or two to the network to actually offer the service. Is really important.
The only consideration that we want to take into play is if we look down the road, because we looked down the road and that's why we pulled the extra strands, so it's because we were looking at capacity. The next step most likely will be 5G. Why are we building infrastructure, physical infrastructure, when 5G as a mobile network is going to be able to provide the gig speed to the house? But then again, we're going to have to wait for T-Mobile or Verizon or somebody else to provide that. So that would be the one consideration that we want to take a look at.
Well,
Okay.
5G, I'm not sure that the 5G is going to go into the homes yet. It's a millimeter wave. It has a really short range. I mean, Verizon was building it. We built some of that last year and the year before for them in the Hartford area. So I'm not sure that that's going to solve the problem for the home networking.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so I think with that, you're getting really techie. Sitting down with you like an accounting conversation here.
Well, you know, I want to make sure you know that we understand our stuff.
I know you do.
No,
So I'm
it's not me,
gonna,
it's we.
there's multiple mics here. So Mr. Rosen, I am going to ask you, in your 5 days left, if you think you can broker a meeting between
We'll just send
Surtex
it out.
and the technology, like,
Yeah,
and then Andy, if you can get your team together in that and sit down with Surtex to kind of
I'll say Avengers Unite or Avengers Assemble.
assemble, Avengers assemble, you get it right, assemble. And with that said though, Mike Surtex.
Actually, Joe.
Listen, there's too many. Well, Mike, 1, 2, and 3. If you could maybe kind of walk us through the financials that you, that we have in front of us, our packet, and how these numbers were come up with?
Yeah, so let me pull that up here. So you're looking at what the budget analysis here, the actual spreadsheet says Tolland FTTX budget estimate summary, partial build.
That's the first one, and then there are operating costs and subscription costs also. So there's 3 pages here of financials.
I mean, the first page is really self-explanatory. That's basically the estimated cost to build out those areas that are shaded on the map.
So can you give us a little background on why those areas? Like, what was the analysis you?
Well, the areas that I selected for the white areas, those are on your network. We don't have to license poles in those areas, so the cost is a lot less to build out along the white. If you can kind of see it on the map. I'm trying to pull it up here.
Mike, I'm going to share my screen so the public can see.
Yeah, that might be better, Mike.
Let me see if I can do that. Share. Okay, so here's the map.
Right, there's the map. I mean, so you've got those white areas. That's your existing network right now. That's just That's what we call an overlash job. And what we did is we wanted to pick the parcels to serve that were along that path. Now, normally when we create fiber service areas, they look more like these other green areas here. These are the service areas, like whether it's to the, over on the west end here where the corporate park is there, the industrial park, or down below where it says Granite Hill Road in that area. They're typically more like that. But what we tried to do was we wanted to be able to serve as many people along the existing network by creating a cable plant along this pathway with terminals to serve the people. If you really zoom into that, it doesn't go any deeper than one property on either side of the road. That's really why we selected that path. So that's the least expensive path. And then what we did is we just took some other paths off of this. Michael and Lisa indicated that it would probably be a good idea to connect up this industrial park. So that's what we did on the left side. We'd have to license poles to get out there on the left-hand side. And then we just kind of went up in some of these other areas and we looked at some of these other areas. This one that's along Old Stafford Road, we did that because that was originally, and I think, I can't recall who mentioned it earlier, about the building out to some of the fire stations. There was a fire station up right at this end that we didn't connect. And that's why we picked this green shaded area here, because you could build out to that. You'd have to license poles and you could use the funds to connect that police station. But along the way, you could also pick up all these properties along Old Stafford Road and Slater Road here, same thing. And then, then we just kind of picked out some of these other areas. I mean, and there was no reason why we picked these in particular. It was just really density. We looked at the most dense areas. This was a pretty dense neighborhood in here, below Statler Road. And then it was also pretty dense above where to the north there's another neighborhood that was pretty dense in there. And that's really why we did that. And then we just wanted to take down below. We took another area down at Grant Hill. That was another large area of homes that we looked at. But those are all new builds as opposed to overlashing on existing. And that's the only reason why we selected them. But I mean, they could be selected at any, anywhere in the town to do this. And then as far as the numbers, I mean, I guess, does anybody have a question as to why we selected this? Is that clear?
Mike, can I just interject real quick?
Yeah.
One of the rules that we also learned broadband is that we do have to address underserved locations. So one of the things we would have to do is to try to find out if any of these areas that we were proposing meet some of those requirements. And they have specific megabytes of upload, download, all that. You certainly, if you're addressing unserved or underserved areas, and there's other areas along that route that aren't, then you could still do those as well. And, some of the recommendations were to maybe do a survey of the public to see how their internet access is working, if it's, intermittent, things like that. So, although we have this area, again, it's something we would have to make sure would comply with the grant as far as the allowance to be included as part of the program, if this was even a project that moves forward. So for the time being, we do have what Mike looked at, and he did it based on what we all discussed, as to get some sort of a proposal, looking at economic development and other initiatives in there as well. So I just wanted to bring that to light, just in case it came up as a question. I wanted to share that with everyone. This may not be the specific area proposed if it turns out that it doesn't meet the qualifications of the program. But I would like Mike to continue to discuss the costs, the revenue estimates, how you get a feel for where we go forward with estimating what the revenue may be. Certainly not every community or household will sign on, so you have some risks there. And I think Mike can best address that whole overall topic of the operating costs, the infrastructure costs we have here, that would be part of the grant covering that, future capital, that's all in here. But Mike, if you would, I'll let you continue now to discuss the proposal.
Well, actually, sir, before you continue, Lisa, no, that's all right. You brought up a very good point there on the unserved or underserved.
Right.
And I don't know if that's, I don't necessarily think that's maybe a survey with the town, but probably with the internet providers that we have, that where they have current service allowed or service or weak service. I know there's other towns, there's some areas that we have no internet providers in, so.
My concern there is you may not get a very good response from those providers, because again, this would be competition for them, and they may not be willingly wanting to share that sort of information. Mike, you might be able to comment on that as well.
Did you discuss the website that we're launching in the next few weeks, the Certex Connect? I know we have Plainville participating and in Norfolk, Kim Maxwell out at Norfolk. There are two towns that have been beta testing this with us, but we're going to be launching that website, and for a nominal fee, it's basically $400 a month. You could basically send that out there to your residents to survey, and they can actually take a speed test and take a survey to see if they're interested. So you can get a read on it. And now that I heard that you have even more time to evaluate this, that's even better, because now you could let this kind of website run for 6 months and encourage your residents to take the survey, take the speed test, and see where that lands.
So before we would commit to spending $2,400 to do the survey, can we reach out to the internet providers and just ask if they have maps of service areas or areas in Tolland that don't have service? Like,
I'm not sure if we have contacts. I think we have to look into that. Yeah.
I'm not even sure who all. I know it would be Comcast or Xfinity. Xfinity.
Frontier.
Frontier for DSL.
yeah, I
But
think
I'm not sure who else, and like I said, I'm not sure if they would willingly share that information, but we could certainly try to reach out.
Okay, I would approve of trying to find out if we can get it from the service providers to start with before we commit to spending money to do a survey. So let's talk about the estimated operating costs here. It looks like it's about $374,000 a year that we would have for operating costs. Is this budget, this operating budget here contingent on number of homes, or is this square area? Like, is this the?
No, that's pretty fixed right now for what you have. This doesn't include, this is basically just to run the network, run the electricity, for your head end that we have to create. I've budgeted some insurance, there's the electrical. You're going to need the transport costs. This is going to come from the Connecticut Educational Network, CEN. They're going to connect us into the, get us down to New York and Boston so that the ISP can connect in. And then there's some other, extended care on the routers and the optical line terminal equipment. And then just, there's a little bit of management. And then, we also figure that there's going to be, approximately a half year's worth of technician services to, for whatever kind of maintenance has to be done. And that's really based on how many people you have on. So these items would creep up. A lot of the ones that you have that are fixed really are the website and marketing. The admin is kind of fixed. That's not really based on the number of users. The extended care, that's fixed. The transport, that's a fixed estimate. Electric, doesn't matter how many users you have. The only one that really varies is the technician, the 1,000 hours of service. That's just based on, the 1,500 or 700, 750 or 800 homes that you might have connected up, and the amount of plant that you have out there. That's really what would go up, is possibly that estimate for the amount of cable plant that we would have to maintain. Same thing when you have a storm now. Lisa could speak to that. We have to go out and repair it.
Well, any storm activity would not, so that's the biggest portion of this budget is the technician and the operations management. So if there was a storm and there needed to be repairs.
Right, and that's what I'm estimating. I mean, we're not going out there anywhere near that for you right now, based on the cable plant that you have up. I don't know if we go out. I don't even know if we're going out once a year. Was a call out.
Brenda, your hand is raised.
Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot. Do we have, or can we find out from the Board of Education or the superintendent, since we were doing remote learning for so long, they might be able to just give us an overview on how many students were having connectivity issues because of, slower service or being underserved with internet. Because they had to address those equity issues for all the students, and that's thousands of households. So maybe we can glean some, information or from some intel from them.
That's not a bad suggestion. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that would be a fairly easy, I know they had the hotspots and stuff like that they had to provide to some people with internet issues. That might at least give us a good indication to start with of the areas. If they can take any personal, I'm thinking PHI, but it's not PHI, but any kind of personal information and just say these streets, where places that we had issues. It doesn't, and by any means, cover everybody in town, but it does give us, from the student perspective, a little bit of a map. Thank you, Brenda. Yep, Mike, if you could, then anybody have any questions on the operating costs? No? All right, Mike, maybe the subscription cost portion now?
So basically what I did here is I just modeled what this would be. Now, there's no capital expenditure here, because if you'd be paying for it with a grant, I've modeled this for other communities where they would borrow the money to do this. Same thing, pay for the grant for the access electronics. And the same thing with the network terminal equipment. That's the equipment that goes inside the subscriber's home or business. And then all I really did here was I just made the assumption, I took a look at what the subscription rate would be to have a target subscription rate of $109. The internet is the charge from the internet service provider. The phone, same thing with the same thing from the internet service provider would provide the phone. And then I just gave down below here, I just gave some, 1 gig symmetrical. That's what we're really looking at here is 1 gig symmetrical. I just gave some of the other pricing. So I just kind of took the one in the middle with a 1-year contract term. And then there's the installation charge to install it in the home.
So that's the reinvestment fund, right? The 1 year, is that, or what's the O&M?
The O&M is the operations and maintenance. That's the table above that, the one that you were looking at. That's $49 collected from 50% of the homes that were passed. So that's roughly 750 homes times $49 should pay for the fee above, which was the 300 and I can't see it, the 374,000. That's really what that is. So that's 374 divided by 750.
So that's the recovery.
That's recovering the 374, correct?
All right,
That's
so
recovering the 374.
that's a key thing. The operating expenses would be recovered only by the people who were incurring this service, and the rest of the taxpayers would. if they weren't.
That's correct. And that's why I assume there's 50%. That's why it's important to understand your market and, who may be interested in this along that pathway. So that's why I say, if what we tried to do with setting up this website was to understand the communities, and you might get, like, I just picked those neighborhoods at random. I might find that if there was a survey that went out there for several months, we might find that some other neighborhoods had a higher interest rate in signing up. So you might want to build to that neighborhood first, as opposed to one of these other neighborhoods that may not have as interest. Because what it does is it plots, it will plot these interested users once they take the survey and they provide their address and their interest level. It will plot them on a map, and you'll be able to see that. We share that with you. So you'll be able to see how many individuals in every, all throughout the town. There might be clusters of, homes that might be interested. You might get a community of, I don't know, 50 or 60 homes, and you might find that that community alone, there might be 40 of them that are interested in signing up if you were to build this. So you'd want to build that area first, as opposed to another area that I just arbitrarily selected on the map based on density.
Okay, and what is the $25 reinvestment fund?
That's just $25 that I'm putting that in there because I'm saying that you're probably going to want to build out. You're getting the grant money now. Normally in that slot, what we would put in that slot is your debt service. That would be your debt payment. But since you're getting this initial build paid for by a grant, what I'm saying is you still want to charge that $25 in the fund. And then what you do is now you're going to accrue money to build out other neighborhoods. That's really what that is. I mean, you could take it out, you don't have to have it. But then if you wanted to build out another neighborhood, you don't have any more seed capital to do that.
Okay, so, I don't know if anybody else had any questions on this, but I guess if what I'm hearing correctly here is the assumption of these areas, we would need to definitely do some more homework on to see about meeting the requirements. But more importantly, I think gauging the desire of those areas to invest, to want to do this, because they're dependent. This 374,000 is for, you said this is for 1,500 homes, the 374,000, or is that?
Yeah, that would be, that if everybody connected, it's really not going to change that estimate much. That's not really going to change. We still have the same amount of cable plant that's built, and I'm just assuming that what I tried to do is I try to come up with a percentage of that's what's called a take rate. I try to get a take rate, and I determine what the take rate has to be to pay the operating expense. And in your town, based on the amount of, the density of your town, it's relatively low. It's not the lowest, but it's certainly not what would be considered a suburban, a more dense suburban area. So I try to look at what the take rate has to be to achieve, paying for these operating expenses. That's really what I'm doing when I do that. I have a worksheet that I use.
Well, this has helped me. Does anybody else have any other questions for Mike on the screen?
No, sounds like the task force, probably the technology task force, probably is the next stop in this process, at least for that consideration.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming and explaining this, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be more than happy to share this with anybody and, go into more detail on a different meeting with IT or anyone else in the town or the community that wants to learn about this.
I will definitely be reaching out to you to try to set something up with our technology committee. As long as you're willing to meet with them, we would certainly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I'm sure you will be hearing from somebody in the town soon.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
If nobody minds, I'd like to talk about attachment E quickly, because this is one that I think we need to understand, to be able to decide if this is something like we were saying that is a smaller project, the benefits of this, and whether or not we want to look at this one sooner. So this one is the expansion of the water line to Station 140 on Crystal Lake Road. I think we estimated this one, Lisa, around $900,000. I think that was.
That's correct.
That was what it was?
Yep.
So, can we talk a little bit about the reasoning behind this and the benefits of expanding the water down to 140? I know that that section of, road doesn't have a lot of houses up to the fire station, so would it expand, access, to those houses also? Are we thinking it ends at 140, or can we kind of walk through that?
Sure, I can start. I know there's a couple of us that might have something. I know John's still on too, and I appreciate you staying on, John, for this. And I know Bev's here. This actually came up when we started having our meetings with the engineers that are working with us on the firehouse improvement project. This came up as something that the town may wish to do. I forget these, John, maybe you can help me out, because I know you were in that meeting too. Extending that water line about 1/3 of a mile, what does that do for you guys?
So, if you don't mind, I'd rather refer to Assistant Chief Dojan, because he's more or less a fire marshal. Carl, if you don't mind, as far as the code requirements, as far as where the addition is.
Nope, not at all. So basically the addition that we're building on Station 140 and also encompassing the other two stations, because of the type of additions and the code changes since they were built prior, they do require automatic fire sprinklers in certain areas of the building. So anywhere where we have a day type room, or a room where we have to do any overnight for storm standby, has to be sprinklered. Looking at Plains Road and Gearing Road, we don't have much of a choice but to put a standalone system within the station with a water tank and a pump and that type of system. It's called a 13R versus a regular 13 system, which is NFPA 13 provides all the sprinkler coverage for buildings. By extending the water line down to Station 140, it allows us to put a standard sprinkler system in the building, and it's a little bit more cost effective on that end, not counting the extension of the water line.
Thank you for that. So if we were to consider this portion, I'm assuming we would want this to line up with the build out and the repair of the foundation of 140. And 140 is the fire station that we're working on first, correct?
I think that's yet to be determined. I know that the consultants were looking at the timeline. There's a certain, I don't know if I have the answer for you at the moment, because I think there was some people would like to see stations 3 and 4, the portable, the modular sort of, the buildings that are like Morton style buildings, ordered sooner, because it's going to take a while to procure those. But I think based on the meeting that we had, addressing the crumbling foundation need early in the project is a good idea. Yes.
Okay, so this is something that we would need to try to kind of think about a little earlier on, so we could partner it up, so we can optimize the works. Scott, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Also, you also have to consider that you're going to put wash bay in that in that station, so the well would never be able to keep up with their for washing their apparatus.
So there's going to be a wash bay added?
So, Madam Chair, can I intervene for a second? Yeah, so just to let you know, that station 140 was built obviously in 1998. I think we replaced the boiler and the heating system already 2 different times, over $10,000 to $15,000. We lose our heating plant at that station every couple of years because of obviously bad water. We've also had some electrical issues where that station has gone down. So there's obviously some water issues at that station. I don't know if it's contaminated or what. We've put a water system, filtration system in there from Banner Water. But like my assistant chief had said, because he's obviously a certified fire marshal, with the code requirements and the rest of the stuff, obviously the wash bay stuff is just something that obviously to come in compliance with the new DEP regulations and everything else that's going around it from the state and the federal regulations. They don't want, they don't recommend washing vehicles in front of bays or municipal buildings. And obviously our apparatus are out 24/7, 365 days a year. So we do a lot of rinsing of our apparatus after every single call to try to limit the rust corrosion wise. So that's why we're putting in a catch basin inside that will be a catch basin which will be entitled to clean the water and also be a pump out, so we can at least rinse the salt and the materials that are being put on, because we never know from every 2 to 3, 4 years where the state or the feds are going to change as far as salt corrosion, or we've gone through different, since I've been here, I've gone through 5 different types of chemicals that have affected our apparatus as far as corrosion and rust. But that's why we're putting in a pump filtration system into that station. So the well's keeping up with the stuff, but we actually lost our heat plantation system last year as again. So Banner Water and the heating company was out there again. So I've spent a lot of money, or I'm sorry, Mr. Lappin or Public Works Facilities Management through the town's budget has spent a lot of money on that heating plant system, where it occurs. But what ends up happening is the firehouses, people don't realize, have to keep at a 65-degree temperature. So because of the O2 and the ambulances and the medical supplies and everything else wise, that facility needs to stay online 24/7. So that helps rectify it. But to be honest with you, I've tried to bring that water line down 20 years ago, down to when we put Crystal Springs and the elderly facilities on, when Steve Amity put that in. We have a pretty much a cistern that is at that facility down there, which a lot of people not even aware of. But we tried to bring that water line down, and I've always tried to extend the water line as far as we can, as we understand that throughout the community as wells and different things go bad. So hope that kind of sums up a 20 to 25-year history.
And you've actually prompted me to now ask a follow-up question to, I have 2 actually, Scott, one of them I think is to you. The filtration system that we're talking about, what's the expected spend on that, and how much have we been investing in the repairs that John talked about over which time period? But more importantly, if we're looking at doing a filtration system and this update is on the list, how long can we put that? Like, we would need to make a decision on this, so I don't want to spend money on a filtration system and then do the $900,000.
You don't want to spend the kind of money that he
No,
needs
I do
on
not.
that filtration system. And
Exactly.
bring the water line in after that.
And then it's
And then have that system last them 8 or 10 years and have
right,
city, town water in there.
right. So do we know, would we have that capability to suspend that?
I'd have to look at when it was put in and talk to, and see what they expect, based on how much water they use now. They can tell you based on the flow that goes through there, how long something like that should last.
Okay. I'd like to know that information, if we can. And if we have, like I said, any kind of summary of how much we've been spending over there, that helps build the case on why the 900,000 is a good spend. And then secondly, on the 900,000 here, so in the one, I think it's what, D, we talk about it being about $1 million a mile to Well, that sewer is $1 million a mile. I thought it was like $1 to $2 million a mile for water.
Yeah, when we talked to Mike Tomato.
Yeah.
Mike said he
But
uses.
we should, I've been in touch with Connecticut Water too, with their engineers, so if you want to get a number, we should probably reach out to them, because it's Connecticut Water. Find out if there's gonna be a cost in that, but then really have them do a good analysis, because we're also on 2 state roads, and
Yeah,
I don't
those
know
are
how
both
that
state
ends up
roads.
And I don't know whether there's ledge in the road, and so there's, the best conditions, I think, is $1 million a month.
Yeah.
So I can speak with them, and Scott and I, we can have a conversation with them.
Well, I guess that's kind of my question. If it's $1 million a mile, this is 0.3 miles at 900,000. So I'd like to, if we can, get some more firm numbers on this, because I think there's a cost benefit analysis to be done here, looking at the filtration
agree.
system and getting the water there, especially if we're gonna have a wash bay, that's gonna extend the life of the trucks. And if we have to have the sprinkler system and we have to do all this other stuff, I think there's a definite cost benefit analysis to looking at possibly a more timely manner to review this one here specifically. Steve's shaking his head. He probably can't see.
No, that makes sense.
Does anybody else have anything regarding this one specifically?
I guess he brought his hand up, actually.
Is it? Oh, yep, Brenda? Thank you.
Yes, I apologize if I missed this. I'm starting to get vertigo, so I apologize if I missed you guys discussing this part of it. When we extend a water line, are we going to have to update the pipe that leads to that? Like, is it 8-inch, 10-inch? Does it need to get larger in order to?
There's no line there right now.
But what is it connecting to? It's connecting to another line. The line that it's connecting to, will that be able to sustain what we're adding to it? Or will it need to be upgraded to be able to handle what's being put in there?
I think that line, I think it's a 12-inch line, because.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you.
Line that goes through the town.
It
but
goes
I can
down to 30,
verify
right?
it.
Yeah, it's the big one that.
That goes to Yukon.
Yeah, the
So-
big one that
so
goes down to.
Got it.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
That answered my question. I appreciate it.
Okay, so are we all good with that one? That kind of the takeaway on where we went for that one?
Yep.
All right, so then let's go back to, quickly, let's go back to D then. And Scott, I think this one here is kind of pretty much, oh, I'm sorry, I'm like discombobulating my pages. I think this one is the presentation that you had. Do you want to just, Mike, do you want him to go over that, or do you want to? go over
So this is the sewer.
I think this is the last one, right? D?
So sewer line on 74. Do you want to talk about it, Scott?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, my understanding was there's a parcel that's approximately across the street from the state police barracks that I think it was 80 plus or minus acres. So they'd probably bring online maybe 55 homes. I rode that at least 3 times. There's 3 significant elevation changes, which means you're going to need probably 3 pump stations. Those are somewhere in the neighborhood of, $700,000 to $800,000 a piece. You run 2 pipes. One would be a force main all the way up to Old Post, the top of Old Post and Merrill. So there it would change to gravity. The other pipes would be, so I believe it was roughly 58 homes, and I think Country Butcher might, be able to tie in at that point. But those would be the gravity lines that would bring it into the different pump stations.
So this here is that we're not doing 50 new homes there, right? And 89 right now, that hasn't sold, has it? Like,
No.
No,
This is
that's
just
just to get it out to exit 69, basically,
Right.
and bring those homes in. I'm just
Yes.
looking at the map, trying to figure that out. Okay,
And the other homes, the other 58 homes are currently there, but they're on septic.
okay.
But they may not hook in.
Yeah,
Right, they don't have
There's
to hook
always
in.
no- they don't
Then
have
it
to
just
hook in.
becomes if their septic system fails, then they have to hook in.
Correct.
All right, and I'm sorry, was there a total price?
9.45 million, but that doesn't include engineering or design.
Page 54. Okay, sorry, I'm flipping back and forth through pages here. So that's about 6 miles of pipe to do all that?
Yeah,
Scott?
it's actually 3 miles from Old Post out to there, but you've got 2 lengths of pipe, so you get 6,
Right,
6
it's
miles.
double. Okay, then after that, we've got the water service extension to the vineyards. Estimated length of the water line. So it's about 4.5 miles.
And again, we use that roughly $2 million a mile just for a quick estimate down and dirty. But one of the big concerns is you had brought up knowing that the water line ran up Charter, which it does, but I don't think that line would be sufficient. You might have
It's
to
a
increase.
6-inch line.
Yeah, you're gonna have to increase the size of that line in order to provide for the proposed service out to that
I
area.
don't know how many miles that is, Charter.
Yeah,
So where Charter is right now, you're saying that's on a smaller pipe.
yes,
And if we wanted to push it out further to the vineyards,
You
we're
have
gonna
to
need a
increase.
bigger pipe.
correct.
So would you have to change what we currently have existing in Charter
Yes.
also?
At least we need an analysis from an engineering or Connecticut Water to say what the capacity and what they can do, but I don't think they can go from a 6 to a 8 to a 10.
No, because it's going reverse. Usually you throttle down as you go out.
Right, not
Unless
us.
there's another way to come in from Woodhead, but that, somebody has to do an analysis on that.
We were under the same. That's the council was that we had to get this together real quick. We didn't have a chance to reach out to people, but
Right,
knowing that we have some time, we can do that.
I appreciate that. I think that's the best way to go. If we can get, now that we've got more time, we can really look at everything and try to come up with a solid price. And then you mentioned here, the water tank replacement.
Yeah, that's something that had come up, I think, almost as like an afterthought at the last
Afterthought.
meeting. Somebody said, well, I don't remember which counselor it was, but I think it just came up that can we use this on water tank infrastructure? The short answer is yes, but that is eligible, but the tank, and we did have a quote from 2 years ago, which may be an old quote, but that tank alone would be 2.5 million of the 4.3. And you don't really get much for that. So it's just,
Yeah.
we wanted to track it down, the answer though.
No, I appreciate that. And then the last thing we have on here is the possible sewer improvements.
Yeah, that had come up because I think, as it says here, in light of the recent rainfall, it's topical from a few weeks ago when we had historic rainfall and, emails from people about flooding. And so I asked Scott to just put together a little synopsis of what our catch basins are and culverts in town. And we have 3,000 catch basins in town
3,000 catch basins in town.
and about 250 culverts in town, some of which are private, some of which are public.
Correct.
How many culverts, I'm sorry?
A little over 250 that we have documented. There's all kinds of private ones that run through backyards that tie into our basins. That 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when these homes were built, builders just put them in. They didn't get any permission. There's no right of way. There's no easements. And a lot of those were ones that we had issues with.
Bless you.
Especially on that flash flood storm on the 17th.
Yeah, I understand that was like, we were unfortunate in that because when we have winter storms that come through, we have an idea of how much precipitation is gonna fall. And we knew we were gonna get a storm, but I don't think anybody in a million years, or even 100 years here, could have predicted that we were gonna get 14 inches of rainfall in Tolland in 3 weeks.
Right.
And fully understanding the fact that you can't plan for that. You can't plan for that. And there's no way, like, the water, there's no place for the water to go. So it's problematic. I don't think by any means that the catch basins were not being maintained or anything. Everybody does a great job of maintaining them and going out there and doing what we have to do,
Well,
so.
when you get that much rain, any organic matter, whether it's somebody who mows their lawn into the street, you have a wooded area, you see the gutters just flowing with that stuff. It goes to the catch basin, now it's plugged.
Right.
The top doesn't mean the inside is plugged, but the pipes that are inside are only so big. And they'll, on an average storm, they'll handle the flow fine, but when you try to dump too much water in, it's this simple analogy. If you run your bathtub, the water goes out. If your drain is working fine, multiply that 4 times that amount of rain, it's gonna come over the top. It doesn't mean that the drain is plugged, just means that you have too much water, too much insurgent at once.
Steve?
I was just gonna add too on top of that, at least where I've been driving around, at least in my neighborhood, there's the number of homes that have dirt or gravel driveways, and that just drains out, and suddenly you have pounds and pounds of rocks going into the drainage system that then potentially clog it, so that's an issue in itself to maintain and repair those.
Yeah.
And probably contributed to some of the back flooding on top of just the historic rainfall.
And in your write-up here, it says the estimate to do 2 culverts for relining them. Relining 2 culverts was $500,000.
Yes, over on, state of Connecticut, a few years ago, decided that they must have had extra time and they started coming in and inspecting our culverts. And these are 2 that are over on Industrial Road, east and west. And what it is they're 3 asphalt coated corrugated pipes. And what they have to do is they slip line another pipe inside it, build a face on each end. And then what we do is we core down through the top and fill it with a grout. So now that the old corrugated pipe is really rendered useless, now we have a plastic pipe inside. In order to do those 2 culverts, we had to get a price on the special pipe, and it was it came in at just about $500,000 for those 2 culverts. We did one recently on South River Road, worked out great, but that was roughly $26,000. I wasn't expecting this price when, but the engineer said we really couldn't reduce the size of the pipes because of the flow that could go through there. So they had to get a special size pipe. And like I say, it's $500,000 for 2 culverts.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
And you mentioned lastly, adding additional drainage may be beneficial, but the concern then becomes where can we discharge to the collected rainwater? And I guess my question on that would be, do we have known areas in town where we could benefit from additional drainage? Is it, or again, take out this massive storm, take that out of the equation.
Typically what you do is you look for what's, what we call sag points, where the low points in the road where you're going to catch most of your debris that goes into catch basins, things like that. That's where you would look to upgrade your system, whether you put a sedimentation tank behind it. Most of the debris that would end up in there, something like that. We have so many rural roads in town. Most of our drainage is basically leaching off the sides of the road. Unfortunately, with the amount of rain we had, a lot of those roads, the road edges washed out.
Okay. Brenda?
Yes. I just want to, we mentioned that, or it was mentioned that, this was a 200 or 300 year storm, that we don't get them that often. But, I know of 2 that have happened that have caused this much flooding in homes in the past 20 years that I've lived here. And we've also had a number of winter events that we've said, this is a 500-year storm. This is a every 200-year storm. They seem to be increasing. So I don't know that that's something that we can really gauge on, take into consideration for this. We know that there's climate change and we know we should be addressing it. Maybe this isn't a way to do it, but maybe there's something else that could come up that we can use this money on that would help us with infrastructure for the climate change that we're receiving. Maybe the chief and Scott can get together and talk about, what areas these 200 and 300 year storms that we seem to be having every couple of years, how they're impacting the town, and is there a way that we can use some of this money to help alleviate the stress and the wear and tear on our infrastructure.
Thank you. Lou?
Sort of building on that, so Scott, that inside your assessment, there was also discussion about how the culverts and the catch basins, that a lot of it's dependent upon private property, where we would end up having to basically buy private property or something like that in order to be able to build out on most of these areas. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, there's a lot of pipes that are much smaller than what they should be. We would have to get construction easements, drainage easements, things like that. We have some drainage down here on Doyle Road that was put in 50 years ago. It drains in people's backyards, and they're saying, well, why are you draining it? It's been there forever. But if we had to try to go in there and do any repairs on it, I don't think they're going to give us the permission because they're not happy that drainage is already there.
Okay.
So then you have to try to rework it in the street, which that becomes a lot more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
So overall, I'm thinking, I agree with what you said. Now that we know that we have more time, these are things that we can look at overall. And if we create a subcommittee could work with everybody to kind of like get the background information that we need, to provide information. So we have not rushed, but the opportunity to overlook all this and try to see the best way to apply it. Because there are things, I agree with Brenda in that we're seeing a lot of these storms a lot more frequently.
Right.
That weather patterns are changing, and we need to acknowledge that something might not be 100-year storm, but it might be a once in a decade storm.
In one of my previous employments with a different municipality, we actually had a huge dike that would handle a storm like this. And what it did was it would hold the water as like a detention pond. And then when all the water had subsided, we'd go out and we'd slowly open the gate and then let that continue to. But that, again, that's something that an engineer would have to look at our property, see what we own, where we can get water to drain to that area. And, there's possibilities. It's just how much money we can spend on it.
Right.
Things like that.
I think this all becomes part of our mix. Steve?
Just one other question, Scott. You mentioned the cleanup for the dirt roads. Has there been any cost benefit of transferring those into paved roads? Like example, Charter Road, I've gone up it a couple of times and I saw it after the storm that you probably had to spend a considerable amount of hours of labor and materials to repack that.
Right.
Would potentially having the town explore paving any of our dirt roads be beneficial towards avoiding that washout, or would it cause other issues when there's these massive rainstorms in terms of the drainage?
When you put a paved surface on the top,
Yeah.
as hard as it is to believe that gravel roads will absorb some water, once you make that an impervious surface, that water has no place to go except to the edges, and it'll do twice as much damage unless we put in drainage. And now you've just increased the price.
Yeah, it would probably put the that bridge at risk too, in terms of it could be mostly washed out, in terms of it suddenly it's all going in one direction towards that feed to Skunkermug. Okay.
Did you want to carve out the health district tonight at least and
Yes.
get that settled?
Yes, so I think at this point, we're right now on the agenda, it's just continued discussion of American Rescue Plan potential money usage. So would we have to?
Would a straw poll be reasonable to approve those funds, or would a formal motion be needed?
You did a straw poll at the last meeting to allow on because there wasn't a formal vote yet. So maybe a formal motion would be just to carve out that 5470 to make the health district whole.
Yeah.
It's not going to really do anything to the overall allotment.
No, it's minimal. So do you have the actual wording?
Well, we don't have an agenda. I
We
don't.
don't, but I know we have something.
It's on page 34.
Page 34 and 35.
Yeah, so Steve Jones, I make a motion that we approve the item listed as attachment A, allocating 5470 to the Eastern Highland Health Districts as requested to respond to pandemic response expenses and reimbursement.
Yeah, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Steve?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
All right.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, Mike, you're good with that one then?
Yep. Great.
Okay, that gets us to number 10, report of the town manager.
Great. Hi, everybody. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So as mentioned earlier, tonight is my last council meeting. I actually, I wish you luck in how you decide to use the ARP money going forward. It's given me a lot of thoughts about where I'm heading and how they're going to use their money. So maybe this was good experience to have here to help that. But I've been wrapping up my time. I have 4 or 5 more business days left, and I've been, performance reviews and just working with the staff to wrap up any loose ends at this point. I know council is still considering what to do in terms of a temporary town manager. So, that's up to you all how you want to do that. But the only other thing I just wanted to mention, unfortunately, I'm not leaving you on a good note here because I did get an email today that I know we were looking into infrastructure improvements as it comes to gas line. And I got an email from Eversource that they did look into the extension of the gas line in Tolland, and they are not going to be doing that. They're not proceeding with the gas line expansion, which was supposed to go up Old Post Road and then go down 195 towards like where Santini's looking to build down there. So they said that there's over 22,000 feet of gas main is needed, and high costs have prohibited the project. Eversource has spoken to the Santinis directly about it and just advised them to install propane. But perhaps a future conversation can take place after costs go down. So that's something I just wanted to let council know because you were looking into that. It was one of your agenda items a few weeks or months ago. Fortunately, it's not what we were hoping for, but it's the reality, I guess, of that. So infrastructure is hard to come by. So when we're talking about making improvements using one-time funds, locally you have the control of what you can do, but we can't rely on other sorts of entities to follow suit. So, but that was just the one thing I wanted to share. Wish I had something better to end on for you all.
That's a get out.
Oh, and then, why don't I turn it over to Lisa? Lisa has an announcement for you. Go ahead,
Oh,
Lisa.
thanks. There's a bus.
See, here I
Just
am.
thrown
trying
right
what to
underneath
do,
it,
yeah.
There you go, thrown under.
Just want to announce that we did put our new budget book software online. I'm not sure if you all got to see it, but if you go to tolland.org, you can pull up the budget for 21-22, and there will be links. There's a tutorial video that we prepared to try to give some insight on how to use the online budget book. As far as the council's copies and staff, they are at the printer. We had to make some revisions as to how it looked, and we're hoping to get them by Thursday this week. So we'll probably have them for your next meeting when you're here. We'll give it to you or stop by or whatever, but we'll let you know when we have them. But it is an interactive book. I like it. I'm glad.
I've been poking around in it. I like the clicky options.
Yeah, and you can, some of the graphs in it can be challenging, but it does give you the opportunity to try different graphs to see how they look. Certainly, maybe for next year, if there's some things that you found was just too much, or maybe something different to be added, we can certainly discuss that. This was our first pass of trying to get information out there, and I had to revamp a lot of stuff to make it happen. Another thing that you will notice in that book is the new 5-year projection for revenues and expenditures based on what the council had expressed interest in, looking at not just one percentage across the board, but taking trends of different categories. So maybe I'm not sure if I did too many categories, but I tried to get some major categories in that 5-year forecast. I trended them out on a separate area to try to get estimated expenditure trends, and then knowing what we also have coming in the future. It's a little bit of everything in there, trending out the future based on capital projects that we know, debt that we know. So those numbers are in there. And so I'd be interested to have your feedback at some point. If you like it, if you want that changed, we can move forward with doing that in the next board.
I encourage everybody to go look at it. There's buttons to be pushed. It's interesting.
Interactivity.
It is, it's very interactive. I like that.
It's budget time again already.
It's not budget time
Okay.
again yet, Lou.
Soon, soon.
August.
But it is,
Yeah, I know.
it is fun. Like it's good to go out there and look at it and be able to stop looking at me like that. I like these things. This is fun.
There's even some spreadsheets.
I know, and there's graphs, there's all, it's, listen, you know, I'm a numbers geek, so, all right. Thank you for that. That gets us to 11, adoption of minutes.
All right, Steve Jones will make a motion that we adopt the minutes for July 8th and July 13th.
I'll second that.
There you go. Any discussion?
Change it up a little.
All those in favor, Steve,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Brenda,
I,
Kurt? Kurt?
Aye.
All right, okay, unanimous, thank you very much. Correspondence to council.
yes, hi, Brenda Flucy here. We had a few emails. One email was informative about an Energize CT grant. We had one resident write in about having a residential search committee for the new town manager. We had an informational email about a water sampling that is happening at some wells in Tolland. We had a email asking for help with a well and to inform us about testing that is happening at their well. We had another email about use of the ARP money and possibly extending water lane to certain neighborhoods. We had an email requesting electric vehicle charging stations. And we had an email requesting that we keep masks in schools.
Thank you. Okay, that gets us to 13, chairperson's report. So I don't have a whole lot tonight, but I would like to start out with thanking Mike for getting us through something that I think none of us in a million years thought that we would have to go through. You know, we did a great job here in Tolland and you led a lot of that. So I appreciate the time that you put in here in Tolland. Wish you luck with where you're going. Can't say that I'm not envious that they're getting you, but you know, I think overall, I can speak for everybody here that we truly appreciated having you here, and we've done some good things in the last 2 years. So I just want to thank you and wish you well. And gonna be a little lonely over there without you in that seat, but you know, I know you'll be an asset to the town that you're going to. And also just that chair hour is next Thursday at 6:30. If anybody would like to come and chat for a while, the information, I'll make sure it'll be out on the town calendar. It always is, but I'll make sure I put it on social media too if anybody wants to come. That gets us to communications and petitions from council persons. Do we have anything tonight? Steve?
I was gonna echo some of your comments and thank Mike for his service. Just sitting here, it feels like kind of a blink of an eye that we went
I
from
know.
being in person to virtual and kind of getting back into that swing of things in the hybrid function, but appreciate all the efforts that have been done to kind of manage us and also manage all the staff throughout this pandemic. So wishing you the best of luck in Norwood and thank you. Good luck with their ARPA funds if you end up having to manage their projects. I know they have some more availability there.
All right, that then gets us to 15, public listed participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 3-minute limit. Anybody who's in the audience will get preference. Next, we'll go to people who are on Zoom. Raise your hand via your device, *9 to raise your hand. If you're on a phone, please list your name and address when I call on you. And you have a 3-minute limit.
I'll let the Zoomsters go first. I do have a public participation.
Well,
I've been talking a lot, so let the folks get on.
his chair is bumping my chair.
Yeah, I
too,
know.
You know, like
I know.
we're chair warring. Okay, so I have Claudette Morehouse.
Thank you, Council Tammy. Claudette Morehouse, 89 Merlot Way. I live in the Vineyards, and I appreciate the discussion on the water lines. Just a little disappointed that not much was in reference to the Vineyards. We're tax-paying citizens, and we have a lower quality of life because we have no potable drinking water. And we feel like this is caused because of the road salt contamination. Yes, the firehouse has it. It was stated in this meeting that they lose their heating system and it all has to get replaced. I lost my furnace back in 2012. And I've made thousands of dollars in repairs. And I feel that the last council meeting, I was kind of thrown a bone that maybe, just maybe, that the ARP money would bring water lines to the vineyards, that there was light at the end of the tunnel. It's amazing that when we have storm outages and people have no power and no water for a day, a week, maybe, it's been over 4 years, 4 years that this community, a handful of people in this community have had no potable water. It's been told that they're trying to blame it on the water softeners. We have one resident in our neighborhood right across the street who does not have a water softener and has that same problem. If it's only a handful of people in this town that don't have drinking water versus how many people have softeners, if it was a water softener problem, everybody in this town would not have potable water. Every month we have to do water samples. Every week we have to do test strips. And now, from what I understand, they're coming out to check for cyanide because it's a chemical used in the road salt. So as a taxpayer, where is our quality of life on your list of money to spend to help us out? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. Chief Lytle.
Well, first and foremost, I have to, obviously I'm in uniform, so obviously I have to comment on Mrs. Morehouse. Obviously I've seen this on the agenda. I'm obviously aware of it tonight, but making a comment in a public meeting, I want to make sure that obviously the state of Connecticut Department of Public Health or the health director is aware of this, because when I hear of concerns of residents without portable water, obviously we have to address that. So I obviously have to send an email as the emergency management director, director of public safety, the fire chief. Obviously I have to send something now because it's obviously I'm in this meeting. So it's no difference in a hospital or any other type of emergency that we've had with disasters. So obviously this is going on. Obviously I'm putting it into a position tonight with this happening, and I'm sorry I have to obviously say this on a public comment or recording, but I obviously have certain state statutes and public health and federal statutes that I have to follow. So I will send an email tonight, obviously following this up, to see where it is, because if that's obviously the case, I will do everything in my power to, I got to do something. Obviously it's no difference than any storm disaster. So I will look into this tomorrow. I apologize for the residents up in that area. I'm made aware of it. I obviously was going on record tonight as obviously the fire chief of my firehouse at Station 140, making the comments as far as how many repairs we've made with the wells and the furnace stuff. But obviously seeing the rest of the COVID money that's out there, I have a lot of members that are still on, unfortunately, because of the system-wide storm disasters. I lost a lot of members tonight that were supposed to be a part of tonight's meeting, but they obviously went through a lot of the minutes of the last meeting that occurred. And obviously my department was out in the forefront. That has been going 24/7 since the COVID times, as far as frontline workers and not shutting down. Obviously my EOC, which is the training center, obviously shut my building down as far as storing PPE and supplies or anything else. This community has never seen, if you want to talk about a 10-year storm, a 5-year storm, or anything else, we've never seen. We've always planned for a pandemic. We've never had it hit to us, but you better watch the news, what's happening. And this is not a threat. This is not a arrow, but obviously CDC just changed the recommendations, what's happening in the world today. And all I can say is that if this is the new norm of doing business, Obviously, I had to take my rescue ambulance money, which obviously is not even a part of the capital budget. And I hope that more residents are starting to follow what happens with the capital money and the budgeting and everything else wise, because the money that is generated from the ambulance funds and the money, everything else that's a part of our 5-year capital budget is costing the taxpayers $0 as far as $285,000 for an ambulance tonight, or as far as other things that are in my capital budget. And with the COVID stuff, we're being taxed with more and more expenses. But this is one department that obviously operates 24/7, 365 days, did not shut down, did not go on COVID, did not go on remote, was drinking COVID for a year, was dealing with patients, was taking it home to their houses and their families. And people in my department that never thought they would have had COVID got COVID. Their life is wrecked because of what happened with a lot of the calls that happened throughout the years. Not even foreseeing the mental health and the EAP stuff of how many people we've lost in the community. Speaking of emergency professional and also a husband of a professional that obviously is intertwined into the community, as well as a educator, lost a lot of kids in this town, lost a lot of people in this town. So my people have gone above and beyond, and we've been taxed out. So we're trying to find spaces to store PPE just to open my training center up to get training and community going. But throughout the budget process, we've been trying to keep up with times. We're talking about extending storm lines and water lines and sewer lines and everything else, adding Santini's, adding another 55. The infrastructure that we've just created over the last couple of years have taxed us out. You will see the numbers that have occurred. I can go on record tonight, and my assistant chief, my medical captain, is on the air tonight, but I can tell you that we will max out the call level this year. We are already at, and Carl, you can shake your head yes and no, but we are at almost 250 calls just for the month of July. We are maxed. 250 calls for a small town and community of Tolland. We are maxed out. The guys and the staff are getting burnt out. The storms, we've been taxed out over the last 2 weeks, doing 90% of the stuff in this community back to back on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. And they've got taxed and burnt out. So I can't appreciate any more than my small staff of 7 people during the daytime, Monday through Friday, that work limited hours, and then my volunteer staff that pick up the staff that occur at nighttime from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Friday through Saturday through Sunday. And if they all left tomorrow, this community would be looking at a $4.5 million budget to outfit this community with a 24/7 department, or start merging with other communities. So we're going to try to get through the next year, but I'm not going to lie to you. I am nervous with what CDC just put forth with the COVID that's happening, people that haven't got the vaccines. We've tried to educate. We've been in one of the communities throughout 169 towns that led the canvassing of, trying to get our populations done. We've done a great job, and hopefully we can do a better job. But as far as the infrastructure and a lot of the COVID money, I hope that is put in the right place. I'm not trying to advocate for my department only, but I have to keep up with the staffing. I put a mutual aid agreement together with 26 towns that if we lost Tolland Fire Department, we would have staffing from other communities to fill in, and other communities are also going to fill in from Willington, Stafford, Coventry, Vernon. We put a mutual aid plan in just to do the infrastructure because of the COVID. We are very fortunate that we didn't lose a lot of staffing, but I can tell you Willington went offline and a few other towns went offline. So we're very fortunate. I hope COVID doesn't spike back up. But obviously I have to look as a department and a leader. But it's been a long year as the emergency management director, leading a lot of the charge that has worked 24/7 and has really worked.
John.
So Chief,
John?
You're still talking, but yeah, no, it was way past the 3 minutes. I'm sorry. I tried to give you an extra minute or so, but.
No,
There's just other people that are waiting with their hands up, so I just got blind.
Before though, John, you jump off, I just want to let you know, if you want to reach out to me, I have a meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Deep and DPH. So if you want, maybe you can jump on that with me. Reach out to me and I can get you the contact information. Next week. Chief Dojan, Assistant Chief Dojan.
Okay, Carl Dojan, 297 Metcalf Road, Tolland. Just to echo the chief's last discussion, where we really got hit hard this year, actually the past year and a half.
My charger.
Just quickly checking our numbers.
Yeah,
We've,
my phone computer.
as of today, we've hit 243 calls. So we've got, the chief was right on the button with it. We're gonna hit that 250 easily by the end of the week. The people are tired, scared. Their families have suffered quite a bit on this, and a little concerning to not see the emergency responders really in the forefront of getting some help on this. I just hope that you as a council looks at this, while all the infrastructure is important and things like that, we're having trouble staffing people. Volunteerism is down, has been since the 1990s, and it's getting worse. And with COVID, it really pushed it over the edge. So, you know, please consider the people out there, day, night, weekends, that are doing this for a very basically sense of community. They get a small stipend, but nowhere near what would compensate them for the stress and time that they're going through, and time away from their family. Just on the other end, you know, we did see, not only just through COVID, but through all the heat that we've had, the unrelenting heat through the beginning of the summer, now all the rain, the staff during the day are overwhelmed. And it's just time to look at, we need to add appropriate staff to be able to do the job correctly. So please look and talk with them, with yourselves, and you know, keep us in mind. These people are out there, they care about this town and they care about the people in here. And you know, please care about them.
Thank you. Robert DeRoy.
And just a quick point of note is that it's a 3-minute limit. So just so that people, I'm keeping the timer, but be able to self-time yourself. It's 3 minutes for this section of public participation.
Okay, I'll make it brief. Hi, this is Bob DeRoy. I'm in 92 Merlot Way up in the Vineyards, and I too am, you know, one of the residents up here that do not have potable water. We've been working with DEEP, you know, testing the water, as Claudette says. We're now informed that there's, you know, they're actually looking for levels of cyanide in the water, which is kind of scary. We had to put in RO systems. I don't know what the firehouse is going to do for filtration, but your traditional filtration doesn't take out the sodium and chlorides. That's killing all the plumbing, right? So maybe the fire department is putting in a big RO system and that'll help. But these water systems and the filtration in a house to try to take out all of this harsh water is just not affordable, right? So the residents should be almost given a tax break, right? Like we're repairing furnaces and plumbing, and it's affecting, you know, our daily lives. It's nice that the town is giving us some water, you know, bottled water to use, but I really only see the way that this can be fixed is to bring town water up here. The wells aren't going to clear up anytime. The DEEP studies, I think, are only just going to confirm that all of the chemicals are in the water. They're not going to come out anytime soon. So I guess one of my questions for the council is that can Connecticut Water Company actually help offset some of the costs of bringing the water up? I would ask you to consider that. I would ask you to consider tax relief for the residents that are dealing with this. And I just appreciate you guys listening to us and considering bringing the town water and maybe routing it with some of this broadband. I mean, I don't know if broadband's a big issue, but maybe the broadband needs to go underground. Put it in the same trench with the water. So thank you for your help.
Thank you, Mr. DeRoy. That gets us to Captain Korn.
Hi, my name's Don Korn, medical captain for the Tolland Fire Department. I live at 37 Mountain Laurel Drive. You already heard the chief and the assistant chief talk about the staffing we have in the town and all the services we provide. I just think it's important to highlight that not only are we providing the services to town members, but we're providing services to ourselves as well. We do have a peer team that we do help, look out for each other. And even though we're stretched thin, our services go beyond just riding in the back of the ambulance. When I joined the department 16 years ago, I thought that's all I would be doing is just riding in the back of the ambulance, helping town members. But I've seen that it's way more than that. And I love this town. I'll do whatever it takes, but it's a lot of hard work. And I just like to echo what the chief and assistant chief said is that, please keep us in mind that, while we're here at the meetings, we're also 3 a.m. at your house. We're also, driving the ladder truck. The chief who goes to his meetings is also driving every apparatus there is in town. And so are all of us. So just please keep us in mind that we really put ourselves out there. And it's what we signed up to do. But I think it's more than we ever imagined that it would have been, especially in times like this with the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll see a digital hand, so members of the in-person public.
Give my 3 minutes. There we go. Andy Powell, 21 Clearbrook Drive. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And going back to a couple of points that were brought up for the meeting, I'm thinking maybe as you have as you're opening up the Veterans Review Committee or Recognition Committee, and you're opening up the guts of that program, you might want to look at if you're adding people to provide coverage for multiple year elections, so you don't lose everybody at one time. If you're going to add people, perhaps you put them on a staggered section so that you don't lose continuity inside. I also wanted to ask the question in regards to CARES Act and ARP funding. If we had lost revenue for the rental of the school's fields, in particular the high school field, we were running that out to different organizations. If we lost money because we couldn't do that, I remember 7 years ago when we were sitting in here and we did the project for the high school, we were trying to figure out what's going to happen in 10 years when we have to replace it. And it was my understanding that those fees would be going towards the replacement fund. So if we're missing money that hasn't been held, perhaps we can recoup some of that money because that facility is going to have to be replaced in time. And that was used throughout the pandemic as a way of people to be able to get out. And that's an infrastructure point as well, that we look at those revenues and perhaps we haven't put that money into the replacement fund. And this would be a way of being able to recoup that. In the last 1 minute, clearly public safety is with us all the time. And the work that they do, both as volunteers and professional staff, speaks volumes for this community. They are committed to the community, and I think that we have done a fair job in supporting them, but I think this is the recognition of the 18 months of taking care of us. And I think the point, if it's just a water line that we need to get into to the Station 140, there's a cost benefit analysis on that. That's going to make it very clear, but also it protects the investment that we have in the infrastructure for them. And clearly, the chief's staff, all the professionals and all the volunteers that are there, it's amazing what they do. They know things that we don't know, that we don't want to know. And the work that they do clearly has to be recognized, and it should be recognized with additional funding as well. I know that the part-time or the short-term guy here, Mike, him and his staff have done amazing jobs. And I greatly appreciate all the work that you've done for the town. And as a citizen and also as an elected official, I greatly appreciate all your efforts. And in the last 20 seconds, I'm going to speak as the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to invite the town council to have a conversation with us in regards to the ramifications of the new legalization of marijuana in the town. We have to look at ordinances and regulations about that issue, because now it is up to date. So we'd like to have a conversation with you folks about this so we can set the table for us strategically. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So I will, do you have a preference, like, that you're gonna be putting that on your PZC calendar? For legalization of cannabis? I know the towns, each town gets to decide what they're gonna do.
I
so-
think, right, and I think that there's ordinance and then there's regulation, and I think we should have a strategic conversation as the two elements of that to decide who is gonna do what with what. So you could have ordinances, but we need to make sure that those ordinance, we'd like to be able to have coordination on that, so we have to get moving, because we missed other things that we didn't do in the past, because we waited too long. Distilleries, wineries, those sort of things, brew pubs, we were way behind on the curve on that, so we want to get ahead on this one.
All right, so then I'll look to get a joint meeting together between our two things. I'm thinking this is gonna be more than one meeting though. Maybe an initial conversation. At some point, we might want to have a community conversation.
Oh, absolutely. But I want to get it I want to get it moving.
Yeah, all right, I respect that, and I'll look to, Mike, if we can write that down to try to get that on, the list of potential agenda items coming up fairly quickly, because I think we'll have to have multiple, like you said, in order to truly get feedback from the community on that. Kelly.
Kelly Uliano, 19 Sugar Hill Road. I'm speaking on behalf as a resident in town. I'm a volunteer EMT. I also work part-time for the public safety officer as one of the chief's assistants. Sorry, public speaking is not my thing, but I feel it's very important for you to think of our department with the COVID grant. It's called a COVID grant, and it's called that because it should be designed to help offset care costs, help for COVID related things. Where our department has been stressed, taxed. I had talked to the town manager about it. I talked to town council members about it. I had volunteered for over 8 years in that department. I just recently in the past year got an employment position. I do this because I love it, but we are tired. We are taxed. We are open on Friday when no other town department is, and those calls come to us. Me, half a secretary, and one other secretary. We're tired. It's stressful. And we do it because we love it. We go in every day because we love it, but you really, truly need to think about the stress it's putting on us, the stress it's putting on our family. I look at my assistant chief, I look at my medical captain, I look at my chief, all the extra stuff that they have been put on, and they do it without a thank you, without a paycheck. They do it because they love this town. They're vested in this town. Their families are taxed because of it too. So I beg you, as a town council, as a person, to look where you're spending this money and what it was designed for. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, with that,
Steve
Steve,
Jones, I'd make a motion, we adjourn at 10:47 PM.
Lulu, all second.
any discussion? All those in favor, Steve,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Right, thank you all for coming.